We have a brief proclamation here before our city council meeting will get started. And this is a proclamation for International Parental Alienation Awareness Day. Okay, and a lot of people may not really understand what that means. And I'm going to let these two ladies here in just a second give a little explanation of that. But in a nutshell, we want to make sure that both children and parents alike are treated fairly and equally in their relationships. So with that, I'm just going to read this, and then we'll have you guys speak a little bit about your organization and your thoughts. Whereas the victimtohero.com community will observe the 17th Annual International Parental Alienation Awareness Day and host their virtual Boundless Love event on April 25th, 2022. And whereas Boundless Love is an event where parents and extended family members are empowered to celebrate their love for their children on social media, and whereas behaviors such as speaking negatively about a parent to or in front of a child can destroy the bond between a loving parent and child, and whereas parental alienation deprives children of the right to love and be loved by their whole family, resulting in a psychological impact on children, and as such, it is considered a form of child abuse. And whereas victimtohero.com is a platform by Sparkle Media that provides education and resources to a worldwide community of parents and children who are affected by parental alienation and promotes public awareness about parental alienation. Now, therefore, I, Kevin Cole, by the power vested in me as the mayor of the City of Pearland, do hereby proclaim April 25th, that's in 2 weeks, 2022, as International Parental Alienation Awareness Day here in Pearland, and just ask each one of us to observe that and understand that how we talk about parents, how we talk about kids, how we act, and those types of things, we can certainly alienate people away from their families. And in this day and age, it is important that we foster good family relationships. And because it can be a form of child abuse, it is Child Abuse Awareness Month in the month of April. And so I wanted to pair that with this whole month of April. And I'll save my comments from the start of our meeting. Was going to talk about that. That's the reason why I'm in blue tonight and have on the pin to make sure that we're bringing awareness to child abuse. In Brazoria County in 2021, 514 confirmed cases of child abuse, 2 of those resulting in the death of a child. That's 514 too many. And so with that, Ms. Victoria, would you like to say a few words about your organization?
Sure. Okay. Well, Victim to Hero is a online platform that any parent that is going through these situation can turn into read, and they will find people that they're going through the same situation, and they will feel more confident to speak with somebody that understands your situation instead of just judging or blaming, because in our culture these could be a taboo kind of stuff that you don't really talk about it because it's embarrassing to a family or things like that. And
All right. So obviously, this month is very important on child abuse awareness, and so as a part of that, there's many different ways that a child could be abused, and so we don't want that in Pearland. We don't want that in Brazoria County, and so just want to bring your awareness to that. In just a second, we're going to take a photo, and then we'll be moving right into our meeting here in just a few minutes. All right, we will call to order this regular city council meeting for Monday, April 11th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. If you'll join us in rising, and we'll have an invocation by Councilmember Owens and our pledges by Councilmember Little.
Let's call it in. Just call it in. Yeah. Okay, let's pray. That's a very important week coming up this week for all Christians in all denominations throughout the United States and other countries. Our dear Heavenly Father, as we come to you today, Lord, we thank you for the many prayers and blessings that we received and you have answered for us, Lord. We know that all over the world there's a lot of things going on, and in which other people are not going to be able to enjoy the season that we're in. And up to you, Lord, we know that whatever is going on and wherever it's happening at, that you are in control. We pray to you, Lord, that you be with the people in the countries other than the United States, and also within the United States, to be with us during this season, and let us come back to you to answer the prayers that we really need to be answered for people with sickness and war, wherever this is going on. Lord, we pray all these things in your name, in Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
All right, thank you very much for that. And again, just a quick point of privilege, making an announcement. If anybody's here for the CUP for the gas station located at 3201 John Lizer Road, that's CUP 22-03, the applicant has asked for that to be postponed to the June agenda, so it will be placed on the June 13th regular council meeting. So that is not on our agenda tonight, and I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that before we started our meeting. And I may make that announcement if I see a few other people walk in here in a little bit, just to make sure. We tried our best to make that announcement out on social media and other places to get the warning out. So with that, we will then move to roll call and certification of our quorum. Madam Secretary, we can certify that we do have a quorum, all members present and accounted for. So with that, we will move to citizens' comments. I'll let our Mayor Pro Tem introduce that, but typically if we have comments that are general in nature, we'll go at this time. If you're wanting to speak on a specific item, we'll hold your comments until we get to that item in the agenda. With that, Mayor Pro Tem, would you introduce our speakers?
Yes, sir, Mayor. First, Mayor, we have Tammy Dexter. If you would please make your way to the podium. And Mayor, she is representing an organization called Pearland's Pet Hub Animal Rescue, so she will have 5 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record, and thank you, Ms. Dexter, for joining us this evening.
Thank you. My name is Tammy Dexter. I reside at 1412 North Pine Orchard Drive. I've been a Pearland resident for 21 years. I've also been involved in rescuing animals for over 20 years. I'm one of the executive directors for Pearland's Pet Hub Animal Rescue. First and foremost, I would like everyone in Pearland to know that Pearland is not a no-kill city, despite our officials and our annual budgets say we have been no-kill. I find it upsetting to see our officials telling the public in a public forum that we are no-kill. It is absolutely not true. According to the No Kill Advocacy Center, a national authority that upholds the no-kill standard, there are 6 no-kill communities in Texas. There are Austin, Rosenberg, Seagoville, Travis County, Williamson County, and Pflugerville. Please note that Pearland is not on the list. I wanted to make it clear to the officials and residents of Pearland that I and the rescue would like to help make Pearland a no-kill city and be the 7th community on the list I just mentioned. And that's why I'm here speaking to you as a Pearland resident, taxpayer, voter, and animal lover. I want to make a few recommendations to help make no kill happen. PAC, animal control, needs to stop to trap and kill practice immediately. Instead, we need a TNR, trap, neuter, and release program to humanely and effectively control populations of outdoor cats. My neighbors and I were outraged to find 3 cats and a possum were poisoned in my neighborhood. Around that same time, my home camera shows the ACO truck about 3 times a day for 2 weeks. That makes a total of about 60 times. I then received a call from the director, John Fisher. He told me the trapped cats would not be coming out alive and that my rescue group would not be allowed to pull from his shelter. He claims that someone heard from someone who told them, who heard it from someone, that we pulled 11 cats 10 years ago and released them all back into the subdivision. He finished it off by asking if I understood. Yes, you heard me. My family was intimidated and being discriminated against because of something they didn't like about us a decade ago. I'm here to tell you John Fisher's accusations are a lie. I am here standing in front of the elected officials again to ask John Fisher to provide proof of his accusations from a decade ago. Otherwise, hearsay, his personal ill feelings towards me that transpired to unfair treatment needs to stop immediately. Our group helps over 500 animals a year, and that's about how many animals we have helped prevent from entering the shelter in the first place. I hope you are proud of that because we sure are. I stand here to set the record straight, saying Pearland is no kill is a lie. John Fisher's accusations of me and our rescue is a lie. Treating people who want to help unfairly, discriminating people is wrong. This needs to change because it's very obvious that in order for things to change in our community to become a better place for all, public trust and support have to happen first. Until our shelter is genuine to work with all people, regardless of gender, race, methods, and beliefs, we will not be able to make that important change for the animals in Pearland. Thank you for letting me speak for tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Dexter. Next, Mayor, we have Beth Stevenson. Please make your way to the podium and state your name and address for the record, and we'll get the 3-minute clock up there. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you. Beth Stevenson, 12903 Shady Springs Drive. I have been a Pearland citizen for 2 years, and I'm here to support Tammy's statement that Pearland Animal Control has fostered an environment of harassment, stalking, and intimidation of Pearland citizens. In my almost 46 years on this earth, 2 different states, multiple cities, I've never interacted with or even noticed an animal control officer anywhere until I moved to Pearland. Pearland Animal Control is special, and that's not a compliment. On March 21st, I called John Fisher to discuss a cat that was trapped in my neighborhood. I had a rescue organization ready to pull this cat, but he wanted the cat microchipped to the organization, which is not something any rescue is willing to do. He also mentioned that he was not fond of the rescue that I had been speaking with. After talking to John for about 20 minutes, and then speaking with the rescue organization again, I did not pursue the matter any further. A mere 2 days after my phone call with John, beginning on March 23rd, my doorbell camera started picking up footage of animal control performing slow, methodical drive-bys of my house. As of today, I have recordings of over 10 drive-bys in 20 days. Not only are they driving by, they are also parking in the cul-de-sac across from me or further down the road and watching my house. Why? What is the reason? I am a law-abiding, tax-paying, regular citizen with no criminal record. My partner and I have been working from home, and it's highly unsettling to be watched in this manner while we were trying to perform our jobs. We are being made to feel like criminals, and surely there's a better use of taxpayer dollars than for animal control to be performing unjustified surveillance on regular citizens. This sends the message to me that any conversation with animal control gets you put on a naughty list and leads to surveillance. It's also unbelievably creepy that animal control went to the trouble to find out my last name and my address, neither of which I ever provided to them. The only thing I did was admit to John that I had performed trap, neuter, release on the cat that I mentioned earlier. At that time, I didn't even know that Pearland had such draconian laws on the books regarding TNR. I encourage this council to investigate the nature and frequency of Animal Control's daily routes and how they are determining these routes. It is very clear that Animal Control is targeting specific citizens and trying to intimidate with their presence. And if they have this much time on their hands, I would argue that they are seriously overstaffed and that their budget is out of whack. I know there are 3 or 4 households in my neighborhood who are very vocal about their dislike of feral cats, but there's dozens of other residents in the same neighborhood who do not feel that way, and we are tired of the constant stream of Animal Control paddy wagons conducting pointless surveillance on our residential streets. Thank you for allowing me to speak today.
Thank you, Ms. Stevenson. Next, Mayor, we have Charles McMurray. Mr. McMurray, if you would please make your way to the podium. State your name and address for the purpose of the record, and we'll get that 3-minute timer reset for you. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for being here.
Charles McMurray, 5209 Spring Branch Drive here in Pearland. Good evening. First, I want to compliment the mayor about the International Parental Alienation Awareness Day. Is that a lot of us who are citizens here do not realize the extent of problems in the juvenile sector or in our foster care. And this reminded me about that to think, since there are a number of citizens here and the legislature will meet next year after we vote in November, to realize that our foster care system for human beings, not just for animals, but for human beings, is in dire strait. The same thing for our Texas Juvenile Justice Department. It has lots of problems with the state schools, requiring lots of issues that the local juvenile probation department has to deal with. Sometimes it seems that we place animal rights above human rights. Thinking about the animal control, this council recently approved a new center for animals. That center for animals that they're having is air conditioned, unlike 2/3 of the Texas prisons are unair conditioned in the summertime. So human rights and animal rights, let's balance those things. I've had good experience with animal control, and they have been very gentle in how they've handled complaints in the subdivision in which I live in. Secondly, later in this agenda, y'all have a issue that's come up regarding household hazardous waste at the recycling center over on Magnolia. The change in contractors resulted in the severance of monies to the Keep Pearland Beautiful for the collection of household hazardous waste. And in the latter part of your agenda, I would hope you would address that. Lastly, I want to compliment Pearland Public Works. In my subdivision, they recently repaired 4 manholes at 4 intersections, which were very dilapidated, and they addressed that and made excellent concrete repairs, and we sincerely appreciate that in our subdivision. And with that, I close and wish y'all a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. McMurray. And I'm going to read the next one in and ask Ms. Natasha Charles. You're next up. Just give your name and address for the record, and we welcome you.
Good evening. Natasha Charles, 2507 Quiet Lake Court. I am the president of the board of directors at Keep Pearland Beautiful. I am speaking with reference today to an agenda item that will be discussed later on tonight. Agenda item 10, resolution R2022-8. Over the last 40 years, the city of Pearland has shown its commitment to Keep Pearland Beautiful's mission of empowering Pearland citizens to take responsibility for their environment. In 2004, the city took this commitment to another level with the opening of the Stella Roberts Recycling Center, thereby establishing a formal setting where residents could bring recyclable materials and household hazardous waste. When Keep Pearland Beautiful assumed operation of the recycling center in 2016, the City of Pearland maintained its HHW funding to ensure that hazardous materials were responsibly processed with as few barriers as possible. Did you know that on average, each person in the United States produces an average of 4 pounds of household hazardous waste each year? It is a common thought that the small amount of hazardous waste each individual produces leaves a minimal impact on their community. Did you also know that the HHW program allowed Pearland residents to bring upwards of 120 tons of hazardous waste material per year and keep said toxic and harmful substances out of local landfills? I urge our City Council tonight to vote to restore funding to pay the city's waste hauler for HHW generated by Pearland residents. We have been a city committed to our community's environmental health for decades. Please do not send the wrong message by letting this impactful program cease. Please vote yes to restore funding on Resolution R 2022-8 and show the citizens of Pearland that you care about the beautiful city that we have, like I know that you do. Thank you for your service and support, and thank you for allowing me to speak tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Charles. Are the rest of them on specific items? Okay, good deal. All the other speakers that we have lined up for tonight will be speaking on a specific agenda item, or at least they've signed up for that. So we'll be moving forward in our agenda. I know we've had a few people come in since I made this announcement. Just want to make sure that people are aware the CUP for the gas station at 3201 John Liza Road has been postponed. So if you're looking for that to be on this agenda, it won't be. It'll be on our June 13th agenda, and we thank you for that. Moving forward in our agenda, we have public hearing number 1. I'll just state this into the record. Public hearing incorporation of 2015 Bailey Road annexation property subject to development agreements pursuant to Texas Local Government Code sections 43.035 and 212.172. With that, we'll move to a staff presentation on this.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a public hearing as required by state law and the statutory annexation procedures. So we do this each time we incorporate property into the city limits. And in this case, we are looking at the incorporation of 2 specific properties, one at 5806 Bailey Road, another at 3525 Charles Street. And these are annexations by development agreement. And I'll explain what that means in future slides. But just to give a background, in 2015, the city incorporated a total of about 443 acres of extraterritorial jurisdiction, each about half split on the north side and south side of Bailey Road. The 230-acre area was between Manville Road to Veterans, and the 213-acre was north of Bailey Road from Silver Lake to County Road 101. So within that process, the city, as required by the state, generally offers agriculturally exempt properties with an exemption from the annexation temporarily through development agreements. We did enter into those agreements with the 2 subject properties. The property, again, at 5806 Bailey Road, which is approximately 7.7 acres of land, and the 3525 Charles Street, which is a little over 15 acres. Both of those property owners agreed to the development agreements. The clock started to tick at the time those agreements were notarized by the city manager, and they expired in 2020. Staff felt at the time, due to COVID, that we would, kind of put a little bit more time available and not necessarily conduct the annexation at that time and come back at a later date. So we're here now to go ahead and move forward with those annexations. Just a little bit of detail about where those properties are located. The 5806 Bailey Road property, again, south of Bailey Road, property ID 166650, is just south of Bailey Road between Ewing and North Wayne Road. And the area highlighted in red is where that property boundary is located. And PID 526093 at 3525 Charles Street, the same shaded red property boundary is used to indicate that property's location. Just to kind of give an idea of the area characteristics, the future land use for those areas is all pretty much light density residential. One of them, I think, is adjacent to a public school site. The utilities, per the service agreement, the state requires that we provide, that we have the capacity to provide utilities, and we do have that capacity. Most of the properties that fit this description want to remain on their own water and sewer systems, and we'll allow that, so there'll be no immediate intention to offer any utility services, but we do have capacity in the area, so we meet that requirement. And the last thing I'll note is that technically these properties are served by the Emergency Service District 4, but they will de-annex those out of their territory once this annexation goes through. And they'll no longer have that tax on their tax roll. Just to give you an overview of where the properties are located overall, as far as the two annexed areas, this map shows those two locations. The good thing is that this fills in some donut holes that have been around for the last 6-7 years. Just to kind of cover the annexation procedures, staff has made sure we're in compliance with Texas Local Government Code there. We've made all the proper notices and publicized and posted those as such. The rule basically says that we have to do that within a certain window. So we are to provide the public school notice, the required public entity notices, and host a public hearing. That notice also has to appear in the paper local record and on our internet website, all those things taking place no earlier than the 20th or the 10th and no later than the 10th day prior to the public hearing, and we've met those requirements. Just to give you an overview of the remaining schedule of activities following this public hearing, there is an agenda item on new business for the first reading of the ordinance, and our city attorney will cover that item. If successful, the second hearing of the annexation ordinance will take place at the April 25th regular meeting. And with that said, that ends my staff report. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you, Joel. We'll move forward in the public hearing and asking those in the audience wishing to speak in favor or against this proposed annexation. Go to the podium, give your name and address for the record. 3 minutes to speak. And we will ask if you do go and want to register a comment, please, there's two properties, just identify which property you might have a comment about. We do? We do have someone who signed up, Miss Selena Woods. There we go. All right. Thank you for being here tonight.
Yes, my name is Selena Woods, and I'm the property owner of the 3525 Charles Avenue. And I am definitely against the annexation because the taxes was going to go up extremely high. I will no longer be able to afford the taxes on that. I've had it in ag exemption since I have lived there, and I wanted to keep it in ag exemption, and I would like to keep it out of the city limits. I thought there was a law on the legislation now that you had to vote on it to be able to annex us, that we would still have a vote for or against it.
We'll get to those questions in just a minute. Thank you. Anybody else signed up? Okay. Second request, those wishing to speak in favor or against this proposed request. Third and final time, those wishing to speak in favor or against this proposed request. Seeing none, we'll move to City Council for questions, comments, concerns. I guess I'll put real quick the question that was proposed. Mr. Coker, I was under the impression this was somewhat of a voluntary annexation through development agreement. So
that is correct. And as Mr. Hardy indicated during his presentation, when we annexed property back in 2015, and even if we were to do so today, you still have to offer property owners who have tax-exempt property, ag-exempt, you have to offer them an ability to defer that annexation for a period of time. The city did enter into an agreement with the Woods, and they've executed an agreement, and that was for a 5-year period. We're actually now at 7 years, as you heard why we delayed it because of COVID. But what that means is now it's time to go ahead and proceed. And the agreement itself actually states that the agreement serves as a petition by the owner for annexation of the property. And so that's what's in your packet this evening.
Questions, comments from council? Mr. Kamkar?
Darren, what's precipitating this? Or can somebody ask what's compulsed 5-7 years ago? This was the ordinance that the state put together a statute where things all of a sudden had to be voluntary. I know this is abutting close to that timeline, but what is compulsing this?
So if you're asking what the impetus for the annexation is, the development agreement itself. So as Mr. Coker mentioned, when we annexed the whole area, the ag exempt properties were offered that development agreement, and upon expiration, that triggered the petition for annexation, if you will. And we simply gave them a little bit of a additional period of time due to the conditions, economic conditions in the community due to COVID.
And to further follow up on that statement by Mr. Hardy, just to clarify the fact that when we annexed both those portions along Bailey Road, that was done as part of a process of evaluating annexing areas along the corridor where we were putting the Bailey Road improvements at the time. And so that was seen as a priority by the city, and that was done. But the caveat to that was we could only annex properties. We had to, at a minimum, offer those tax-exempt properties a development agreement. And also, to answer a question that she asked earlier, the property owner will still be able to take advantage of the tax-exempt status. That doesn't go away unless they change the use of their property. Oh.
Ma'am, we can't have you speak off the record. Thank you.
And just to follow up on that statement, yeah, it was a negotiated development agreement, and both parties signed the agreement, and that's in your packet this evening.
So another aspect, Mr. Kamkar, is at the time, communities, cities were allowed to annex involuntarily due to the state law at the time. And that changed in 2017 with Senate Bill 6. And that's when the involuntary annexation went away, essentially. But this agreement and that annexation on Bailey having taken place before that, we're allowed to continue moving forward with the process.
Let me ask a stupid question. So we started improving and providing water and sewer, and therefore the city at that time had the ability to put them on the annexation process, and that's essentially what happened?
I would add to it, it's the improvement to Bailey, as Mr. Coker said, the significant public investment for that road to provide that access and mobility. And yes, we do have the ability to serve. I couldn't say that we've got the water and sewer throughout, and that's not required, but we do have that ability to serve. So it's a public investment of the road that had the city at the time strategically look at incorporation of the abutting properties. And I would add that I believe there's more than a bit of a equity for the properties that we had annexed at the time. These particular ones who entered into that development agreement deferred that, but now the time is here to pass that deferral, and it's incumbent upon the city to follow through on the development agreement.
And the service, I was just going to indicate that the service plan for that annexation requires the city to be able to provide water and sewer capacity to the area, not actually take it to the property lines. And the rationale behind that is because that's an enterprise supported fund, and it's not taxpayer supported. So,
Mr. Coker, real quick. So if I understand, again, there's several of us that weren't on this council when that took place, so we're trying to catch up with what was in the mind then. So in 2015, when this was done, it was an involuntary annexation. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That is correct. And secondly, they didn't have to sign this development agreement. They could have just been voluntarily annexed in 2015, just like all the other property owners out there. Is that correct?
Involuntarily.
They could have been involuntarily annexed. Yes, we're required to offer a development agreement. If they had refused to enter into a development agreement, they could have been annexed at that time. Correct.
So it would have been annexed then, or they deferred 5 years, but they've actually gotten an additional 2 years out of that deferral. Okay.
That is correct.
Okay. Member Perez?
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is a challenge, obviously, in conformance with the state law, which I don't agree with, and it's put us in these awkward positions. In conformance to state law, we shouldn't be allowed to do this involuntary annexation. But I just don't know how I get around. How is it fair to the others who didn't have privilege that she had where she could postpone this, where they were annexed in the city. The reason we did it, and I was around in 2009 when we tried to annex Bailey. That went over gangbusters. And then when we actually had to do when we actually truly invested in the road, we did the annexation for a real purpose. We put a lot of money into that road, and we didn't want the south side, the areas that had developed, give those people an opportunity to get an increased value in their property, then sell it to developers and have no protection to all of the other people along the corridor, or a new roadway that has better access, and then all of these unattractive commercial developments occur. And, I struggle, and I'd like to hear some of the other arguments of the council members, because again, the annexation is annexation of the property, same with the zone. It's zone the property. If we cannot annex it, we cannot zone it. If we cannot zone it, then anything can happen on that property. And is that fair to the other people who were more compelled to be annexed when we had the authority to do that? I'm leaning towards moving forward with the annexation, at least on the first reading. I know that she's disappointed. I would be too if I were in your position. But globally, I think this is most fair to everybody. Maybe not most fair to the one individual, and I can certainly understand why she would be upset with us if we move forward with that. But I think, in fairness to everybody who were compelled to have to annex at that, or have to be annexed at that time, I think we should move forward.
Any other questions, comments?
Yeah. How many? Yes, thank you, Mayor. How many people are on this corridor have been in a similar process? Obviously, you have these two properties here. This predates me, but I wasn't even in Pearland.
Yes.
Time frame. How many people?
There was another one that was located on Bailey Road that they ended up, per the agreement, if you tried to develop your property outside of an ag use, then we initiated the annexation then. So in 2019, I believe there's a Dollar General out there. I don't know if that's the exact name of the place. It's a different, it could be a different name, but anyway, it's a dollar store. And that's one of the properties. There is another one that we hope to be coming back to you on a later date, because we're trying to clear up some paperwork on that one.
There was only 3.
There were a total of 4.
Total of 4. Wow.
One's already been annexed, and then these two.
And one more to go.
And then if a fire happens in these properties, who's going to go serve that fire right now?
Regardless, it'll be us. As Joel mentioned in his presentation, currently, they're paying the ESD tax, and we get that money. Future, it'll be us, and they won't have the ESD tax. They'll be paying the city property.
Yeah, so they're currently ESD. ESD will go away, but we serve a contract with ESD, but right currently.
A couple more follow-up questions. Assuming we annex, they automatically be de-annexed from the ESD? Is that in the agreement between us and the
Yes, that's part of the state law.
State
As
law.
far as the emergency service district, they have to de-annex that territory.
Is it possible we can enter into an agreement with this individual? My biggest concern is what happens if it develops. We want to be able to protect the development. Could we enter in an extension in this agreement where development of the property of any sort triggers annexation? Or does that make things a little too muddy?
That's already in the existing development agreement.
I believe the council member is asking if we were to extend the term of the agreement, and then if development occurred during the extension. Is that my question would be, if you extend it for a term, then you're just deferring that same issue to a future council.
I don't disagree, but I mean, to be honest with you, there's nothing on that land that makes much of a difference to the city of Pearland. There's not, even if regardless of the exemptions, if the property owner were to pay into our tax rolls, it's not like it makes or breaks our budget. The only reason that I would be interested in annexing is to ensure that we protect the development of the property from being a nuisance to the neighbors, which is why we have zoning, which is the principal reason why people want to be in incorporated areas, or why we incorporate areas along corridors that we develop. But we can't dialogue with you, ma'am. I'm sorry. But is it a possibility that we can enter into an extension of indefinite length that is only triggered, the annexation is only triggered when the development of the property is requested?
No, I believe it would need a term certain. We couldn't have an open-ended agreement, essentially saying we promise to never annex you unless this happens.
What's the limit of that term?
That's something I haven't looked into, and I think I'd probably need to look into that a little bit further.
I'll defer to the other council members if they're interested in exploring something like that. I wouldn't object to it. Maybe it's a halfway point.
I would be interested in looking to see what's the maximum term we could defer that. You could research that, Darren?
I can look into that.
I would just ask, seems like this gentle lady here has quite a few questions, and if we move forward with this, it's going to have the second reading. I guess we could also, answer a lot of her questions she might have, and then also give us an opportunity to do some more cost benefit, both for her and the city. So what I'm speaking into the meeting tonight is that I would be okay with moving forward on the first reading, and then we'd have an opportunity to, but I don't know if I want to try to just kick the can down the road even more. That's all I have there.
Real quick, Darren, and state it again, if the annexation occurs, does she keep her ag status current?
Yes, but as she indicated, I believe, and Joel, correct me if I'm wrong, but she'll definitely be exempt from the county taxes, but not from the city.
It basically boils down to the appraised value. So the assessment is subject to an ag exempt level. So that occurs at all different taxing levels when it comes to every taxing authority. So there's no $0 tax exemption. It's assessed at a lower value than its market value, if you will.
Could Joel, do you have the estimate of what the city portion of that would be? On the
so overall, the net for this particular property would probably fall in around the $1,200 range as far as additional taxes. The ESD tax goes away, our city tax, and we did contact Brazoria County to get an appraised, value, and based on what the ag exempt for the city would be to make those calculations. But the other thing is there are other services that benefit those property owners. So our franchise agreement with Frontier is something that offsets the additional costs that they often pay for trash pickup and things like that. So that could, be an additional savings. Our franchise agreement is something like $19 a month for trash. I think sometimes these properties can pay in upwards of $100 a quarter, sometimes even more. So that's another benefit to being in the city limits.
Joel, that was $100 a month for that property. What was it for the other property? Do you have that information?
For the Bailey Road property, that property's tax comes to a little bit over $413 net, just based on the ag exempts and how those different taxing authorities calculate into
for the year.
For the year, yes, sir.
$60 a month.
Okay. Questions, comments, council?
Joel, did you say $100 per quarter or $100 per month?
It can vary. It depends on what their volume is. We've seen it go as high as $100 a month, but generally we see about $100 a quarter.
Okay, because that's what I was looking at here. This when I was doing the $950 plus the $50, $60 for the SD. I mean, it seems like it would kind of work itself out, but if it's $100 a quarter, maybe
it depends. It depends on the service.
Yeah, so that's why I would like to maybe get a little bit more specific information. We're making a final decision on this, but
Mayor, I would be open to postponing a little bit. I think there are questions, and there's a third person that's in this bucket too, and I just don't have enough data. And
so let's get through the public hearing. Yes, sir. And then when we put the item on the agenda, we can take that up. I think that way we get through the public hearing. But I want to make sure all questions and comments are asked and answered here before we get too far. I don't see anybody else reaching that way. So we're going to close the docketed public hearing at this time. So we'll move to new business, and certainly we can put that on the table for consideration, council member. Member Carbone, would you place new business item number 1 on the table? This is the one on Bailey Road. Hers will be the second reading, the second item.
Thank you, Mayor. Consideration possible action, first reading of ordinance 1613. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We've had staff report. Darren, do you have anything additional to add?
Nothing further to add unless council has a question. I believe City Manager.
Hey, Mayor, I was just going to say this does require a second reading, so we'll be coming back to you. And we did contact both the property owners, and so they both had the opportunity to ask questions or talk to us beforehand. I believe the other Bailey one, that's the first action item here, we have been in some contact with and had, I don't want to speak for them, but hadn't expressed any concerns. So.
All right. With that, Madam Secretary, we'll call for the vote on new business item number 1.
Mayor, I'm going to offer a motion to postpone both this one along with the second one. We'll get the second one. We'll treat them both the same. I think the postponement could be beneficial to find out if what the limits are to the extension, give us a little bit better information. I don't want to treat one differently than the other. So I would like to postpone, get some of the questions we asked answered, and I would be perfectly fine postponing to the next regular meeting.
I'll second the motion.
So, Mr. Coker, we just have new business item number 1 on the table, so we'll have to take them in order.
That is correct.
Okay, just to make sure that we do that. So we have a motion to postpone to the next agenda. Is that correct? All right. Madam Secretary, we will call on the vote to postpone.
Member Perez?
Aye.
Member Owens? Member Carbone?
Aye.
Member Kamkar?
Aye.
Member Hernandez?
No.
Member Little? Aye. Motion passes 6-1.
5-1. Right.
5-1. Sorry.
5-1. Okay. So, Member Carbone, go ahead and place item number 2 on the agenda or on the table as well, and we'll dispense of it as well.
Thank you, Mayor. Consideration possible action, first reading of ordinance number 1614. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second now.
I'll make a motion to postpone, Mayor.
We have a motion and a second to postpone. With that, Madam Secretary, we'll call for that vote for postponement.
Member Perez?
Aye.
Member Owens?
Aye.
Member Carbone?
Aye.
Member Kamkar?
Aye.
Member Hernandez?
Aye.
Member Little? Motion passes 6-0.
All right, thank you for that. We will put that on the next agenda. Hopefully we get some more questions asked and answered and at that time. We'll move to public hearing number 2. So with that, if staff wouldn't mind reading into the record the reason for the public hearing and then move into staff report.
Sure thing, Mayor. So this is a request by Renee McGuire, applicant on behalf of Forgotten Angels Foundation owner for approval of a zone change from the light industrial district, planned development, and single-family residential 4, R4 district to the general business district on approximately 7.06 acres of land, generally located at 3309 Industrial Drive. So as stated, this is a request to rezone from three zoning districts into 1 zoning district. You can see on the map on the screen that a portion of the property lies in between all 3, and the applicant is seeking to continue developing the Forgotten Angels property. You can see on the screen a site plan showing where their next building is going to be, and that next building is a multi-use building. We've got some photographs of the property. The property on the left photo is on the left-hand side, and this is a view down industrial or across Industrial Drive. And then the view on the right is looking into the property. And again, more images of the property here. So the Planning and Zoning Commission conducted a public hearing on March 21st at their regular meeting. The commission voted 7-0 to recommend approval of the requested change. And that concludes staff's report.
All right, thank you, Martin. Is the applicant present? All right. Do you would like to have a applicant presentation? You can, or we can get to you when we have questions. Up to you. Okay, sounds good. Thank you for being here tonight. So with that, we'll move to those wishing to speak in favor or against this proposed request. Can go to the podium, name and address, and 3 minutes to speak. Second request for those wishing to speak in favor or against this proposed request. And third and final time, those wishing to speak for or against this proposed request. Seeing no one moving in that direction, we'll move to City Council for questions, comments, and concerns. Anybody got anything? Seeing none, we will close this docketed public hearing and move to new business item number 3. Mayor Pro Tem, would you place new business 3 on the table, please?
Gladly, Mayor. Consideration possible action, first reading of ordinance number 2000M-224. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We've had staff report, questions, comments, any follow-up questions from anyone on council? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, we call for the vote.
Member Hernandez.
Aye.
Member Little. Aye. Member Perez.
Aye.
Member Owens.
Aye.
Member Orlando.
Aye.
Member Carbone.
Aye.
Member Kamkar.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right, thank you for that. Moving forward to public hearing number 3. Same thing, Martin, staff, if you would place the reason for the public hearing into the record and then move into your staff report.
Sure thing, Mayor. So this is a request by William Wyattrek, applicant, on behalf of Barbara Young, owner, for approval of a zone change from the light industrial district to the general business district on approximately 0.287 acres of land. This property is generally located at 3909 2nd Street. And again, this is a request to change this property from the M1 district to general business. You can see here on the zoning map that there are a variety of zoning districts around. We take a zoomed in view. You can see that the light industrial district is unique to the inner portions of 2nd Street, as the majority of the properties surrounding 3909 are general business. The future land use plan shows this area to be light industrial. And the property survey shows that it is 2 lots with a metal building. So here are some views around the property. You can see that it has been improved with a new outdoor seating area. And then you can see the side view here of the subject site. So again, the commission held a hearing for this zone change request. At that hearing, there were 10 citizens wishing to discuss the zone change. Their issues or discussion points were about a similar use being conducted at the applicant's previous residential property, the broad and vague description of the applicant's desired uses, policing activities, and the ability to park 50 attendees at an event. Additionally, the commission discussed short-term rental use at the previous residential property and the expansion of the outdoor area without occupancy or permit applications, and the addition of parking on the site. After the commission discussed, there was a vote of 0-7 to recommend approval of the requested zone change. That constitutes a negative recommendation, and a supermajority vote will be required by City Council to approve the requested zone change from the light industrial to the general business zoning district. With that, staff concludes their report.
Thank you, Martin. We'll move. Is the applicant present? Do you have a presentation? All right, thank you. Welcome.
My name is William Wyattrek. I live at 2219 Verona. And of course, this is about 3909 2nd Street. Recently, I applied for a zoning change to change the status of my warehouse from light industrial to general business, as you can see here. All the buildings in the street are zoned the same. and I've owned the building for 14 years. It's been used as an office and a training center for my entertainment company, Incredible Events. We've never had a single complaint from any of the neighbors in the entire time we've owned the property. We've occupied the building since its purchase in 2008, except for a 2-year rental to a hydraulics company. The only changes we made to the building is extend the deck a few feet with fencing to create a private patio, 2 exterior murals, and we painted the interior to resemble a street in Paris. Since we do more corporate and team building events with our company than children's mascots like we used to, we had hope to create a venue that would permit small events, TV show production, and team building like puzzle room and murder mystery events. This fits better into the general business model than the current light industrial. However, after having applied for the new zoning, we're required to show our future plans, redo inspections, and attend the meeting that was here last month to discuss the change. And although it makes perfect sense for the street since everything else is general business, there were 10 people here who spoke against it. So instead of addressing the zoning change, suddenly my character and my home activities became the subject. None of the people who spoke at the meeting know me personally, nor live on the street of the property. However, a well-known member of Pearland reported that my home has been hosting wild parties for the last 2 years, and there's been nudity, drug use, and general immorality. None of these are true. So let's go ahead and talk about the elephant here in the room. The last party I had at my house was 2 years ago, where I met my girlfriend. During the pandemic, I was on an app called PeerSpace, and I allowed people to do video shoots at my home. A lot of times they were hip-hop artists. I kept the traffic down to a low minimum. There was never any nudity. Explicitly, it doesn't allow any drug use in my house. It's in my rules. But I live in a cul-de-sac, so there's some parking issues. So a couple of the neighbors got upset. We tried to fix it all, but it was a little bit too late, too soon. And some of my neighbors, it's a quiet street. And some of my neighbors don't like anybody in the neighborhood that they don't know, particularly people of color. And there was a lot of people of color. So I want to just clarify, this zoning here has nothing to do with my home in Verona. I fixed all the problems in Verona. I no longer allow any video shoots there. The gossip that's been spread about me is completely untrue. Several people have tried to defame my character. If anybody thinks there's going to be wild parties here at a warehouse that doesn't have a pool and can only contain a few dozen people, well, and it's painted like a place in France, you haven't been to a wild party in a while, because it's not that kind of venue. So we wish to create an art-themed center. Just to be clear, this is not a bar. It's an art-themed center. It's based on Renaissance artists, Gauguin, Van Gogh, Toulouse, Banksy. It's a place where we can do photo and art-themed events. It's a place where we can film my travel show. We can have our local performers come there and do things. I write for Houstonia Magazine. I do videos for 713 News. And I want a place where I can do that that's not my home. Obviously, my home is not a good place for that. So this is a place where I can do that. We realize that there's going to be, that some of the neighbors there have questions about traffic, and we plan on having no more people there than our parking can accommodate. The hysteria that's been ignited about drunk people walking across Highway 35, drug use, and increased crime is ludicrous. Because imagining hordes of people crossing the street in nearby private parking lots filled with overflow cars from our tiny little warehouse is ridiculous. We realize that we're going to need more parking, and we have the space to do it. We have a whole second lot. So, but we can't really go further until we have this rezone. General business allows us to move forward, develop the property to fit the neighborhood a little bit better. Instead of having a machine shop there or a welding company or a mechanic with a bunch of broken cars, we plan on this will be occupied for a few hours each week. That's it, with little impact on the neighborhood. Thanks for letting me speak.
Thank you, Mr. Whitetrack. This is part of our public hearing. We do have people that have asked to speak. This is typically the public hearing where people would just come forward naturally. So I'm going to hold these. If you speak during this time, we'll count that as spoken to the issue. So with that, we're going to move to those wishing to speak for or against this proposed request. Go to the podium, give your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Donna Smith. I live at 2705 South Galveston Avenue, and I am currently the president of the Baker's Landing Homeowners Association. If you looked on the map, that is right across 35 from this particular address and 2nd Street. We have a lot of issues about this because the community of Baker's Landing is not that old. It's probably been there about 5 years. We already have issues within the community with people using Hampshire as a cut-through, of which we can't do anything about it because it is a emergency cross street. Where this particular building is located, yes, that was part of our concern, is the fact that if there is not enough parking for his venue, then there's a good chance that they would come across and park along Hampshire, which is something that we don't particularly care for. If you also look at that area along 35, it is light industrial. There are machine shops. There used to be a McCoy's lumberyard that now is right in that same area, and it has large equipment that's for rent. So I don't know what their issue is as far as why everything else around there is not marked as light industrial, because from what I see, right across in that area is pretty much, machine shops and air conditioning places. And we really object to this being put into the possibility of what could happen, because there is a residential area and schools very, very nearby. Thank you.
Thank you for that. We'll do a second call for those wishing to speak in favor or against this proposed request. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Marcus Moreno. I live at 3916 2nd Street, Pearland. I'm against this zoning change. I think it's going to impact the neighborhood, not only the neighborhood, but the surrounding area negatively. I grew up in that neighborhood. It's a nice, quiet neighborhood. I spent most of my life there. And it's a nice, quiet neighborhood now. And I think that this is going to change things. They've already made changes to the building. Like they said, they built out that deck. He says it built out a couple of feet. It's built out 10 feet. As far as their website, it shows it as being it's going to be a venue for a lot of different things. I mean, it even says they're going to you can rent it out for parties. Now, they say they can accommodate 50 people, but when you have a party, as many people as want to show up can show up. Now, as far as there being a bar or not a bar, in that deck area, there's a setup there. Looks like it's set up for a bar. It says in the website, do-it-yourself bar, so I'm guessing that's what it's set up for. Like everybody else said, it's a small street, it's a dead-end street. There's not a lot of parking there. I mean, if there's going to be parties there and stuff, we're going to hear it. And then, I believe it only has one little bathroom in there. More than likely, people are going to come outside and relieve themselves. We don't need that in our neighborhood. It's an old neighborhood. We're comfortable there. Like I said, it's nice and quiet. Respectfully, I hope y'all vote against this zoning change. Thank you.
Thank you. We will make a call for those wishing to speak in favor or against this proposed request. See Mr. King moving that direction.
Hello, Ralph King, 2805 South Galveston. This is 2nd Street, right around the corner from my house. I recognize the owner's comments that I don't know him from Adam. All I know is what I look at on the website when I look at his property over in Green Tea and what he's doing there, and I look at what he's proposing for a French Street. And he's gone already and extended the deck roughly 10 feet into the right-of-way without permits. And obviously there's been a lot of discussion about how he's managed the previous properties. I just want to point out an interesting news story. This was from Channel 13 News on March 20th at an industrial area at the Dreamlight Production Studio, just off the Beltway, across the Beltway in Houston City proper from Pearland, of which there was a birthday party. 2 17-year-old boys ended up being taken to the hospital after the shootings. One of them died. And all I'm making the point is when you have these massive internet rentals and you host these parties, birthdays, whatever, industrial building events, whatever you want to call them, when they end up in that kind of environment, it's just a matter of time of being in trouble. Interesting, the neighbor, he didn't make the comment, but him and I have conversed because I went by and drove it and put my eyes on the place. He's already used it for events and had cars parked up and down the street already. And it's just a matter of time if you authorize this change. Now, yeah, from a regular zoning standpoint, this is a little island, but the purpose and the use and the performance of the current owner would indicate that that would enable him in order to accomplish what he's trying to do. And I think it's pretty clear, not only from citizenry, but from direct across the street neighbors and around the corner neighbors. We object to this zoning change. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King. See Mr. Eskine moving in that direction.
Paul Eskine, 2519 Park Avenue in Pearland. Mr. Mayor and Council, I was at the planning and zoning. There were 10 residents there. Baker's Landing was there. The one gentleman spoke that lived on 2nd Street for quite a bit of his life. There was another man there that had lived on 3rd Street for most of his life, and he's there. So the residences that are there, want to keep it as much residential as possible, but they want to keep it it's always been a very private area, in quite a few ways, and not very much crime and very calm. And that's what they want to keep. And so I think that with the situations we have where you have very broad descriptions of what the property might be used for and what's been out there on the internet and so forth, even though planning and zoning was discussing about the dirt and about different things like that, they all voted no. And so I ask you all to not approve of the zone change. Doesn't seem like that's what the older part of the area in Pearland wants. And considering Baker's Landing and the residents in the area do not want it, I would ask you to vote no. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And I'll do one last and final call for those wishing to speak for or against this proposed request. See 2 people making their direction. Thank you, ma'am. Name and address for the record. And thank you for being here.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Lockhart, and I live at 2219 Verona. Dear sirs, staff has recommended the proposed zone change for the property in question. It was recommended before it was voted 7-0 after all of these concerned residents came forward. I'm going to stick to the facts. In the last 14 years that this building has been owned by the owners, there's been no problems there. So despite anything else that's happened and any other property that he's owned, there's been absolutely no problems there at this property. It's served as an office space for an event company and was leased out for a few years to a hydraulics company. I understand a few residents have come forward and shared their concerns about our proposal. Despite all the hearsay that's been circulated about our home address on Verona, I'd like to point out the fact that, you know, there's never been issues here. I truly have all confidence in the City of Pearland and the processes in place to ensure safety, growth, development, diversity, and livelihood of our beautiful community. I've never been prouder to be a resident of such a progressive, safeguarded community. I like to thank the city's employees who unbiasedly assisted me through every step of the process to meet all compliance standards at the property on 3909 2nd Street. My goal has always been to be a good neighbor, and I've tirelessly made every effort to do so at my home address as well as the property located on 2nd Street. Bill Wytrack has accepted his responsibility and paid dearly for his past infractions. We've made all efforts to reach compliance at this property in question. In fact, the punishment imposed for violations at our home address have been extremely harsh and unjustified. Is this truly the kind of message we want to send to the residents of Pearland with small businesses in our community? It's inconceivable to me that anyone could justify stripping this man of his livelihood and engage in the defamation of his character based on a smear campaign that was organized by Joseph Koza and a few members of the green tea community. We've only done what was necessary to keep our home. It's quite obvious that this smear campaign was organized in July of 2019. A few members in the green tea community who assembled a committee has made some serious allegations about activities they claim have taken place in our backyard. Not only is this libel, it's slander, and our privacy has been grossly invaded in efforts to destroy our credibility, and it looks like it's worked. We can disprove all these things that this man has said on video in multiple hearings. I've watched them all for months. For the last 2 years, it's completely disgusting to me that this has been allowed to carry on this way. It's libel and it's slander and it's illegal. I'm proud to be a born
Ma'am, you've
American.
gone beyond your 3 minutes. Go ahead and wrap your comments up if you would.
Moving forward, I just want you guys to make it make sense. Everything is zone general business. Whether it's rezoned or not, you can't make us not do business. We can't just say, okay, we're not going to rezone you. You just can't do business. It just doesn't even make sense. The fact that you guys are letting these people come here and say these things that can all be disproven.
Ma'am, this is I'm going to end your comments now. Thank you. People do have a right to come in a public hearing and express their views. Ma'am, they have a right to their views. Right, wrong, or indifferent, they do. I believe we have one other person heading their way to the podium. Thank you, ma'am, for being here. Please give your name and address for the record.
Yeah, I'm Lori Sandberg, and I live at 3821 Lancer Circle. It's part of the Baker's Landing neighborhood that others have spoke to. So I am against this proposal. I think the parking is going to be a big issue. Where I live is going to be probably one of the prime locations for them to park. I like the quiet neighborhood. So yeah, I think you guys should support the Planning Commission and vote against this. Thank you.
Ma'am, before you get seated, can you see staff and fill out a form for us, please? Thank you.
Thank you for that. And I'll just make one last final call. Those wishing to speak in favor or against this proposed request. Seeing no one moving that direction, we will move to City Council for questions, comments, and concerns. Any start down here or which direction?
Sure, Mayor.
Perez? Yeah.
First, I think maybe before we get into a lot of discussion, particularly as we get into the action item, this is not appropriate venue for us to assail each other's character or discuss things of a personal matter. We're not going to get into a back and forth of he said, she said. What we're looking at is a zone change. The zone change is agnostic to the owner. It's agnostic to the use. Those things do not matter in a zone change. We're just looking at, if we apply for this zone change, does that zone change fit the area? I will say my general opinion, Mayor, is that neither of these zones fit the area. And we talked about this previously. This was Airports 2. Clearly, it was intended to be a residential use. It developed as a residential use. We talked about the development that D.R. Horton did. My belief is that this really needs to be, that we need to encourage this to remain a residential use. Those homes that are there existed likely prior to the zoning that converted it to commercial use. In the interest of supporting our Planning and Zoning Commission who voted against this, I will also vote against this. I am not voting against the individual. I'm not voting against the use. I'm voting for our planning and zoning. And I think that all of those who care to speak on this, all of us council who care to speak on this, let's focus on the use. Let's focus on the zone. Let's not focus on any history on a piece of property that is irrelevant to this matter. And that way this meeting can go a lot smoother for all of us. But that's, I think it's fair to say that's why I'm going to vote no for this, Mayor. And I think we probably need to as we discussed before, comprehensively look at this entire 35 corridor, particularly on the west side, and take a look at what's a better strategy for zoning this, since we've kind of completed the thought with the D.R. Horton zone change that we don't believe this is really an appropriate area for us to continue to move forward with industrial. Hasn't been as successful as we'd like. We really need to try and find a better use or mix of use in the area.
Good comments. Questions, comments from council?
So Member Perez said very similar to what I was going to say, Mayor. So I'll be a no on this for the same reason. If anything, I looked at this and said maybe neighborhood services or something because it looks like a neighborhood. So I can't see where this zoning would be appropriate.
Right. Any others?
The staff approve, as was said in the comments, the initial recommendation of P&Z move forward with the zone change?
Staff's original recommendation was approval.
And was the 10 feet, one person said 2 feet, one person said 10 feet on this deck, was that in the right of way? Was that accurate or inaccurate?
We don't have a measurement for this. It was not included in the survey that was provided within the packet.
Member Kamkar, if I could answer your question. All right, this is Lawrence from Legal. Sorry. The city at the time the zone change application came, and when code enforcement had gone out in that area, they did note that there were some improvements built without a permit, and there may have been a certificate of occupancy issue going on at that time. That code enforcement action is attempting to address those issues, in part to come into compliance. The zone change is a way to come into compliance. Still, additional things would have to happen. However, those two issues still remained. The certificate of occupancy needed to be updated, and the improvements needed to be permitted or come into compliance if it is in the right of way.
And just for the staff, what happens if this doesn't pass? Like what happens to what's already changed here and whatever their activities are? I mean, I know we don't want to go into history, but we're not exactly the most observant on what the rules are, just historically speaking. And so I'm just curious if this stays what it is, what enforcement happens or doesn't happen, or what activities are permitted or not permitted.
Code enforcement, if we were under the impression or had noticed that anything that violated the current zoning was happening, then code enforcement would investigate that.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing none moving in that direction, we will close this public hearing and move forward to new business item number 4. Mr. Camcar, would you place that on the table, please?
Yes, Mayor. New business, consideration, possible action, first reading of ordinance number 2000M-225. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We've had the staff report as well as comments from council. We did have one other person that did sign up to speak, didn't speak during the public hearing, but did ask for a new business item. I guess it was public hearing number 3, but new business item number 4. Mr. Joseph Koza, go to the podium, name and address for the record, and 3 minutes. Thank you for being here.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Thank you for your time this evening. My name is Joseph Koza. Address is 2910 South Main Street. Mr. Wytrack brought my name up, and y'all want to talk about the property. The day that I walked past the property that's just south of the building that I'm in, Mr. Wytrack had an RV sitting on it. That was against city ordinance. Of course, he's not breaking the law. Also, his other property, because it will bring in his character. There on April 20th, his attorney signed an agreement. Clause number 20-022-1901. He has violated that over 100 times. If you think this is a model citizen that we need operating something like that at 3909 2nd Street, it's a sad day in Pearland. This is ridiculous. This type use should not be allowed in Pearland, period. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you for that. We didn't have any other that we missed during that. All right, thank you for that. We've had questions from council and comments and any concerns. Is there any follow-up to that? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, and I will reiterate, it takes a supermajority to override P&Z. That's 6 votes to override P&Z. So with that, Madam Secretary, we'll call for the vote.
Member Camcar?
No.
Member Hernandez?
No.
Member Little? Member Perez?
No.
Member Owens?
No.
Member Orlando?
No.
Member Carbone?
No.
Motion fails 0-7.
All right, thank you for that. We'll move forward to consent agenda. A couple of things. We've had items A, G, H, and O to be removed. So with that, before we vote on that, I think Member Perez had a quick comment.
Yes, Mayor. One of the items not pulled, item G.
G has been pulled.
Okay, well then I'll wait till then.
You'll wait? All right, good deal. So if Member Little, would you place the consent agenda item on the table? It's items A through P with the exceptions of A, G, H, and O.
Yes, consideration possible action, consent agenda A through O with the exception of A, G, H, and O. So moved.
Second.
Through P.
Through
A
P, excuse me, through
with the
P.
exceptions of those. Right. Good enough? We got that. We have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary, we'll call for the vote.
Member Little?
Aye.
Member Perez?
Aye.
Member Owens?
Aye.
Member Orlando?
Aye.
Member Carbone?
Aye.
Member Camcar?
Aye.
Member Hernandez? Motion carries 7-0 for consent agenda items A through P, with the exception of A, G, H, and O.
All right, thank you for that. We will move forward In new business continued, new business item number 5. Member Perez, would you place that on the table, please?
Happily, Mayor. We'll get there eventually. There we go. Consideration possible action, second and final reading of ordinance number 1611. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, into staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the second reading for the registration requirement on short-term rentals. Been discussed several times. Has been revised based upon comments were brought up from the last meeting and updated appropriately. Nothing to add.
All right, we will then open to council for questions, comments, concerns. This is the second and final reading, passed and approved at the last meeting.
Mayor, we do have
Yes.
4 members of the public who have signed up to speak.
Okay. Sorry about that. I didn't see that, so let's call those. Who's first up?
First, Mayor, we have Lindsay Lockhart. Please make your way to the podium. State your name and address once again for the record, please, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Thank you for being here.
Hello again, everyone. I'm Lindsay Lockhart. My address is 2219 Verona. The reason for this ordinance is because Joseph Koza challenged the council 2 years ago, and I'm really sorry that you guys have spent so much time on this. Multiple comments that he's made on record, on camera, can be disproven. It's really disgusting to me that this kind of libel and slander has been allowed to take place here in Pearland. Pearland's always known for doing the right thing, and the right thing just hasn't been done in regards to this issue. There's been stories that have been told that we've had parking going down the street. It's just not true. We don't ever have more than a maximum of 6 to 8 cars maximum at our home that is currently a Airbnb property. We have had neighbors record us, record our guests on camera, take pictures of our home, send their drones into our backyard. I'm sure that none of you would appreciate your neighbors spying on you, taking pictures of your home, approaching your guests, recording them, asking them questions, or sending drones in your backyard. It's a gross invasion of privacy. I just want everybody here that's thinking that they may vote for Mr. Koza, think about what he's done and what he's proposed that he's going to do for this city. It's on camera. He'll tell you what he's done and what he would like to do. He has a personal vendetta against William Wytrack, and it needs to end at some point. And I would ask that you guys end it now. I'm not against the ordinance. I'm not against these kinds of properties being regulated, but I've lived at the property and I'm personally at the property. Nobody's leaving and having guests there. We live at the property. Nobody has their home listed on Airbnb or VRBO because they want it to be a party center, okay? We listed our home on these sites to save our home. And we live in the home, and we certainly do not allow these kinds of activities there. It's a lie, and it can all be disproven. And if it continues on, lawsuits will be filed for slander and libel and invasion of privacy. And we would really like our neighbors to keep their drones and their cameras out of our backyard. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lockhart. Next, Mayor, we have Ralph King.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King. Please state your name and address for the record once again. And we've got the timer up there for your convenience.
Ralph King, 2805 South Galveston. You know, I'm not normally one of the ones that likes to see government intrusion into the free market. But if y'all missed the recent news coming out of Manville night before last, where an Airbnb was being used against the HOA's deed restrictions, in which there was multiple shootings and 2 wounded people, in excess of over 100 people at a party. When you have that kind of behavior or use of short-term rentals, clearly for the community, there has to be some way to step up and deal with that problem. And this is a good first step. I don't know if it's going to be enough. I hope. But clearly it doesn't seem to be excessively arduous, I don't think, in my mind, to get an inspection and make sure you have 2 ways of egress and all the things that's listed. And to have to renew it every 2 years is not that big a deal. And so, from that standpoint, I look at this as probably a good balance for an ordinance. And so I just urge y'all to continue to move it forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King. Next, Mayor, we have Paul Eskein. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm sure you know the procedure.
Twice in one night. Okay. Paul Eskein, 2519 Park Avenue, Pearland. I was just going to speak to say that I'm in favor of the ordinance. I had first been aware, of course, with some of the STRs in the area, but part of my, trying to bring it to attention had to deal with the unfairness I feel with the hotels in the area, and speaking with those owners specifically. All of us in general business that I am, we have all the regulations we have to deal with. And sometimes it's city regulations, sometimes it's state. With my business, there's also federal regulations that, we have to comply with. And, when you have to do that, you want to have a fair ground to be for the businesses. And so I think this, if people at their homes want to have short-term rentals, there should be some basic rules that they have to go by, some basic safety concerns that they have to go by. And I think this is a start. I know it doesn't solve all the problems. It's not something that was made just to take care of everything. I think the council has mentioned that it doesn't necessarily take care of all these different problems, but it is a good start. And there was a short-term rental committee that was formed by the city to try to have different areas to discuss, and they came up with this solution. So I'd like to have the council vote in favor for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eskein. And finally, Mayor, we have Joseph Koza. Please make your way to the podium. Thank you for joining us.
My name is Joseph Koza, 2910 South Main, Pearland, Texas. Thank you very much, Mayor and Council. As you well know, back in July of 19, there were probably 8 residents in the area of 2219 Verona Drive that came and spoke about this issue. For the last 3 years, approximately, we have been fighting this issue because there was an event center run in Billet Estate, which backs up right next to Green Tea Drive. That home had many, many police calls made to it. Councilmember Owens was threatened there by one of the party goers, as he so said in meetings previously, and can speak about that later. This was brought to a head to try and curb some of this activity. We do not need this type of activity in residentially zoned neighborhoods. That's why it is here tonight. I hope that y'all find it within your will to vote for it, where it might not be a perfect ordinance, but it is a start to be able to take and control these type activities. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So we will, I would like to recognize Mr. John Lamson. Randy, did you sign up to speak? We had to have a speaker form in ahead of time. Did you have it? I'll take it. Just all right. Thank you for that. Randy, if you'll go ahead and make your way to the podium, name and address for the record. We'll give you 3 minutes to speak. You just forgot to turn it in.
Yes, my name is Randy Bailey, and I'm live at 2217 Verona Drive. Mayor, thank you, and council, thank you for letting me speak for a few minutes. Anyway, I would like to thank the committee and thank the council for pressing forward on this short-term rental ordinance, because we've been held hostage it's more than 3 years, actually. And again, I appreciate the committee that put together the ordinance, and my major appreciation goes to Mr. Cosa. If Mr. Cosa had pursued this and showed us some direction of how we could do it, I had gone to the Homeowners Association to get help and did not get any help whatsoever. And so we do appreciate this. And again, the problem being is that, they can come and say that they don't do any of this stuff, that they do not have any photo shoots or anything anymore, but that's totally not true. I mean, because we actually had a person come to the house, and they actually had a photo shoot right before the zoning committee, where they came and said they did not do any more of that. And why I know that? Because the lady who did the makeup actually came to our house, and she was asking for us to help her. And to help her because somebody in 2219 Verona had actually hit her car. And she wanted us to help her to come up with some resolution to that. So again, so she did, what she did is she showed us all the pictures that was taken at the photo shoot, which they come up here and claim that they don't do that anymore. Well, then, if you want to see the pictures, I got them right here. So, and again, it's not that we're taking it and we're not going over the fence and looking at it. We're in almost, my backyard butts up to theirs. So if you want to stop it, this ordinance you're putting together will help that. And we need that ordinance to control that. I mean, you see that these people have already been shot in these other locations, and it needs to be controlled. Nobody's stopping Airbnb, or nobody's stopping short-term rental. Nobody's stopping that. Channel 13 came out and said, City of Pearland stopping it. That is not true. All they're doing is stopping the people that want to violate the ordinance. And that's all we want to do, is stop the violation of the ordinance and help us. I've said it before, give us our neighborhood back. And it was getting that way, and it is coming back. And it's getting a better place to live. And with your help, and again, Mr. Cosa's help actually did it. And we are indebted to him for doing that. And I don't know where these people are coming in and saying this stuff or whatever, but whatever they're saying is totally not true. And he's a blessing for our neighborhood. He's taken us out of hostage is what he's done. And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. With that, any other people signed up to speak? Okay. I did want to recognize Mr. John Lamson as one of our citizens that was on the committee that helped put this together. I appreciate your time and effort in putting this ordinance together. We had myself, Member Perez, Member Hernandez, Daryl Eisenberg from the Planning and Zoning Commission, and one of our hoteliers on there as well as staff participating along the way, and certainly Mr. Coker and the legal department in crafting and putting this together. I will say, lastly, that this was an ordinance that was a collection of ordinances from around the state. We're not the only city in the state that has put together regulations on short-term rentals. More and more cities are doing the same because of some of the issues that we're starting to see in neighborhoods, residentially zoned neighborhoods, and just making sure that we're keeping peace and good neighbors with each other. I haven't heard a single one of the neighbors that have been affected by one house in our community say that they don't want somebody to be able to rent the house out for normal short-term rental activity. but we do need to make sure that we've got some tools in place to help curb the unruliness that may happen. And to that end, Darren, I'd like to ask a quick question. And we all, I think, saw the news of what happened in Manville, just right next to us. Manville's ETJ, I believe it was actually in the county, late Saturday night, early Sunday morning, where drive-by shooting, 2 17-year-olds shot, party going on, and this was all as a result of an Airbnb rental and a party rental. So, Darren, if this ordinance doesn't say, it's not necessarily going to stop that type of activity that may happen, but if one of our short-term rentals had that activity happen, what would this ordinance help us do?
That was a bad time for me to put a
I tried
lifesaver
to
on
keep
my mouth, and
going.
I apologize. So, you are going to get to see me on camera. Take it out of my mouth so I can talk appropriately. I apologize. All right. That was really awkward. I've been here 20 plus years, and I haven't had to do that before. But anyway, so all right. To answer your question, so what this ordinance does, right now, obviously, let's go back 6 months ago. We really didn't have any regulations at all. Right now, we currently have the registration ordinance, and that's it. So when you look at that, there were no regulations. So the only thing we could rely on were other areas of law where there may be a violation, because it was not inappropriate for anybody to have an Airbnb. We didn't have any rules against that, and this doesn't necessarily prohibit that either. But what that does is, instead of saying, oh, is it a noise nuisance issue? Are they blocking driveways, or are they public intoxication issues, whatever that may be that could be occurring at an event where a party would be happening? What this does, it says, hey, let's establish because this evolving economy, the shared economy, and of course Airbnb and VRBO, those types of businesses where you do that, what it's done is it said, hey, let's establish a basic framework by which everybody who wants to participate in that economy has some understanding of, here are some general rules, we're going to have expectations. Because I think generally people want to know, okay, what are the rules if I'm going to do this that I have to play by? So here are the general rules. And if you recall, it's fairly simple. Obviously, you would have to have a permit to operate. There would be an inspection, and those inspections would not have to necessarily be annually. And then there were some restrictions on number of occupancy, on limits on occupancy, some parking regulations, some rules about what you have to include in your advertising, those types of things. And then essentially some due process rules by which, what are the standards by which we're going to be able to either deny a permit or revoke your permit? And so what it is, it establishes that general basic framework. And if you violate that, then at least, okay, you're operating. Now we have a means to take that away from somebody and say, okay, you do not have the ability to operate anymore. And then if somebody's going to continue to operate either without a permit or in violation, then those are the extreme circumstances where we're going to have to possibly go a different route. The idea is that you have a rule here and that you generally get compliance, and you work with people to get compliance. And if you don't, then we have this other alternate means to go. And that's, in this particular case, and what we've done in the other is a Chapter 54 case. It allows us to do that through a civil case. This last one took a bit longer because there was on and off stuff because of the time, because of COVID, and things were slow during COVID. Not much was happening anyways. And then you saw a resurgence of issues at the property. But this will basically create a bifurcated approach. We'll come here first, try to regulate, and then if not, we still have another tool to deal with what I would call extreme circumstances where somebody's violating the ordinance.
Okay. So it just gives us an additional tool to help with the situation. So I wanted to make sure, this ordinance in and of itself is not going to stop a party from happening. It's not going to stop a shooting from happening. But it does give us some recourse in the event that it does. It gives some occupancy, max occupancy types of things. So if somebody is renting the house or a room for just normal overnight stay over a weekend or something like that, you're not going to have a party of 100 people, as an example. And so it helps keep, hopefully it will help keep some peace in some of our neighborhoods. which is what we really are looking to accomplish here. I'll open it up to questions and comments. Member Owens?
Yeah, I've heard a lot of things tonight about all the stuff that's going on and happening on that. I am not in favor of any kind of short-term rental in a neighborhood where I live at. And yes, I went down on Barone Street down there when that was going on, and you could hear the music when you turned off a country club, or actually turned off a green tea to get there. And you had to park away from it because at one time, all the people that was in the place down there, they were parking back up at the corner, and some also parking their green tea and walking down there. And I went down there to visit some of the people and that live in that area. They couldn't even, a few of them couldn't even get out of their garage or car back on the road because of everything else that was going down there, going on. And I can tell you from a few of the people that walked out down there, they really wasn't in that good a shape when they left that facility down there. And I guess, there may be some complaints that people looking in their backyard and stuff like that. But when you can hear the music, a block and a half away, and at one time you couldn't even turn off a green tea to go down to Verone because of the cars parked down through there. I mean, and it was in some of the people that came out of there was what I would say in pitiful shape. And I called the police department to have some police officers come on. I live in the area over there off of Green Tea in Country Club, and I don't appreciate it. I've been there since 1990, and I bought a house in that area, and I didn't want to what I would consider this as a business going on, in the neighborhood there. But when you have a home in that area like that, and you can't even use your home for your kids, your grandkids, to go out and play in the front because of the type of people that are there that was at that house that day. And this is just a shame. It really is. I mean, if this is the case, I think it should be called a business. You should pay business insurance if you got a pool. I think you need to come around and put a chain link fence around it to keep kids out of it or what have you. And you should actually, come in and do the same things that a hotel does. The stuff they go through, and for that. But I'm not. I don't care. We're trying to do from what we can do to help regulate some of that and take some of that back. But if any of you were down there during that period of time on Verone and take a look at that, what was going on, that'll make you sick at the money that you paid for to live down there, and one house comes in there and destroys all of it for you. And so, I have no sympathy for anybody that rents their house out. To me, we've put all this time and effort as a committee here in planning and zoning to develop an area for zoning restrictions for residential. Then all of a sudden you have all these businesses come up. And I think, the short-term rental is a business, and it should be people going in and taking a look at it, as far as our people at the city to go in and I think that they should pay taxes based on the commercial business of some type rather than a residential. So, I know this is a step in the right direction. From my say so, it's not enough to do that, after you've been involved in one or two and just see what really happens. I mean, it'll make you sick, the money that you pay for your home there, and then all of a sudden this kind of activity taking place, and it's a shame. It really is. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Member Camcar?
I need some clarification. Darren, is the items, is that injunction a public item, or is that not a public item? The injunction on the Verona, is that
okay. It's actually the agreed order that was signed off on by the court.
Yeah.
That is a public document.
That's a public document. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
It is.
So I'm really glad that we had a couple members of the public say that they don't want to do regulation, but they realize this is needed. The reality is we have a business functioning in a residential area, and they're essentially not, they're in between this weird space. I am generally not for more regulation, but Mr. Lamson and Mr. Bailey have come previously and talked about how their peace of mind has been ruined, throughout this time because they don't have the ability to go to sleep at night feeling like, is everything going to be normal? Is there going to be a lot of racket? And that really compels me. There was a Miss Flores that was here at the end of last year that really pushed me, and it was her being able to say, with all these people coming in, she didn't know who was going to be next door to her, and she had to be up at 5:30, 6 in the morning. And as somebody who has small kids, you get those nerves. Yep. And it's not a right or wrong, it's just being a human being, but that is what moves me in this direction. Now, I just want to be really, really, really clear. This issue where the Verona item has kind of tamped down is not because of this ordinance. There is an injunction that the city sought outside of this ordinance. This ordinance is really, really good for making you sign up to pay your taxes to the government as hot tax. It is really, really good for us to identify you. And the one thing that I do like that is positive is there has to be a posting, so the police, if there's a nuisance, has to come and show who owns this house and who's responsible as a permit holder for who's renting this. That is the part that I find really, really redeeming. The rest of this, right, it makes you pay your taxes. There's no ability to enforce parking. If there's too many people parked, you're not going to have anybody towed on this. So I just want to be really clear that if this passes tonight, somebody goes and sees somebody in an Airbnb rental, we're not going to go tow those people. Right. And so the expectations, happiness is a function of expectations. Right. And so we just want to make sure those expectations are really, really defined. This is a work in progress. Right. This is not going to be the final. We're probably going to look at this 6 months from now, maybe a year from now, and say what got right and what didn't go so right. Darren, I just want to be really sure. If somebody violates this ordinance, the police cannot go haul them off because they're in violation of throwing a party. There's not the ability for somebody to get thrown in jail over this item.
Not necessarily. If somebody's hosting a party and you've got people who are publicly intoxicated and there are other ordinances at play.
They're following the police.
But as far as this particular ordinance, the property owner, no.
So like somebody says, did you go and notify the permit holder or anything like that? There's no ability to go out there and throw somebody in jail over this.
No. I'm sorry. Just to clarify, what's going to happen if there's a violation? A person's going to first of all receive a notice of violation. And then obviously, depending on what it may be, an opportunity to cure, if, for instance, they're not posting things properly or whatever, they can get an opportunity to cure that and prove that they did that within a reasonable amount of time. But not even going and issuing a citation is notice of violation occurs first to give people a chance to comply. And then once that happens, it's a Class C misdemeanor that would be handled by our municipal court.
And so I just want to be very clear what this thing is going to do is help us find out who is possibly throwing these parties at these Airbnbs and who are the Airbnbs, and are you paying your taxes? That's about it. Maybe 6 months, maybe a year down the line, maybe this gets a little bit more reform or it gets fixed up. But I just want to be very clear about what the expectations of what this does. I think this is a step in the right direction. I don't know if this is going to end up being where we need to be long term, but it's a start. And I just want to really get those expectations there. I want to thank the committee for their time on this. They made recommendations. We kind of sanded them off on the corners a little bit, and got some improvement. I think we're going to be working with code enforcement to do some of these inspections, which I think will be helpful. But this is not going to end here, and it won't be perfect, but it will be somewhere that we need to get to. So thank you for y'all's time on that.
Thank you for that. Member Hernandez?
Thank you, Mayor. So I was very recently approached by some members of the community who asked me a question about this, to which I did not have a very good answer. So I had some members of the public reach out and ask me who were the current STR operators who were on the committee. And I said, to my knowledge, we did not have any. And so it was likened to the efforts of the Chamber of Commerce when we were considering the stormwater utility fee, saying that we did not consult the business community and how they were going to be impacted. To the degree that I guess provided comfort, and there were a lot of residents in this very chamber who came to protest our exclusion of that group. So seeing as I made a commitment to try to do my best, I guess, to provide fair representation on these types of things, if we're making a rule that I think is going to impact a very specific group of people, my response to the people who reached out to me was, I think that's a fair point. And so with that, also my examination of the registration piece that we have in place, where now we have a registration requirement already in place, so we're going to know who the people are. We can start hunting down whatever taxes they owe. I think that is an important thing that was already done. However, on this, I would like to see the opportunity maybe to get some current STR operators to give their input on this, kind of again similarly again to the request that the chamber made. And because of that, I will be changing my vote tonight, which I know is not going to be popular, but I do see myself as a representative for everyone in this community. And because those individuals reached out, knowing this is most likely going to pass tonight, I think it's still fair that I represent at least that voice here tonight. Thank you, Mayor. That's all I have.
Very good. Member Carbone?
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to thank the committee again for continuing to show up. Second reading. It's not perfect. I think it's a good balance. To my knowledge, we've got 3 current or former STR operators sitting up here on council. So in terms of their input, pretty good input here. In terms of dealing with the Verona issues in the past, I wish we would have had some ordinance like this. Is it perfect? No. Would it helped us to resolve this in maybe 12 months or less versus 36? Yeah. Are we going to come back and make this better and change it over time? Sure. But it's a good start that we need to get started with. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Member Orlando, you have anything? Okay, good deal. Any other last comments, questions? Good deal. Madam Secretary, we're going to call for the vote.
Member Perez?
Aye.
Member Owens?
Aye.
Member Orlando?
No.
Member Carbone?
Aye.
Member Kamkar?
Aye.
Member Hernandez?
No.
Member Little? Motion carries 5-2.
All right, thank you for that. We will, where did I leave off? You did not, David did 6, 7. 6 will be Mr. Owens. Would you place new business item number 6?
Number 6,
Number 6.
consideration of possible action, first reading of ordinance number 1612. I so move.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight we have a series of items that relate to financing for the city's capital improvement program. As we've said, this is part of a step, an important step through the process that depends on where you want to draw the line, begins with the capital improvement program, then the budget, and then most definitely the council's action on the notice to reimburse. So these are the actual starts the actions for the financing to meet those obligations. I'll turn over to our CFO, Amy Johnson, and then she'll introduce our financial advisor team. So, Amy.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. So items 6 through 9 are our annual intent to reimburse items. These are the bond items, and you will notice that the water and sewer has been changed to COs based on the council input from last month when we had our CIP workshop. All the items are 20-year bonds, except for the TERS bonds, which I believe those are 8-year bonds when the TERS expires. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Roebuck for our presentation this evening.
Thank you, Amy. Mayor, council members, thank you. I didn't realize I could clear a room like that. Talk about bonds, usually people want to hear, but this is fine. I do have a presentation to give tonight over the proposed 2022 bond issues. But before I get started on the bond issues, I'd like to introduce Rick Whitty, your bond counsel. He drafted the legal documents we're asking you to approve tonight. And also, I'd like to go through the current bond markets. I'm sure y'all are curious to know what the bond market is doing. We've seen a lot of volatility in the stock market, the treasury rates, and also in the municipal bond market. We've seen yields increase significantly over the last couple of weeks. Fears of inflation, conflict in Ukraine, just name a couple of the factors that are doing this. On the sheet here, keep in mind, we posted this last week, so we get this in your agenda packet. We've seen the general obligation rate go from a 253 on this presentation in front of you to a 348 in 1 week. Now, I think that will come back down. That was a kind of a knee-jerk reaction by the indices to show the rates across the country. In Texas, we're seeing rates go up, but not that fast. So for a credit like City of Pearland, we're not going to see rates move that much, but it is a very volatile market at this time. So we also believe rates will continue to go up, so it's a good time to issue bonds, lock in rates now, and maybe offset some of those increases later this year and in person next year. The first item in the presentation is item 6 for the permanent improvement bonds, and this is estimated debt service requirements on page 2 here. We are looking to generate proceeds of $25.1 million for the projects that we're intent to reimburse, and we are issuing 20-year debt, and we are structuring this debt around the existing debt to minimize the tax rate impact to the taxpayers. The next page is the sources and uses of funds. This gives kind of a summary of where the funds will go and how the bond issue works itself. We're looking to issue about $22.8 million, generate premium of about $2.5 million, less your cost of issuance generates that proceeds of $25.1 million. We're showing an estimated insurance cost here of a 3.248. I wish I could say that's probably what we'll end up. I think we'll be a little higher than that when it's all said and done, because these were run a week ago and obviously rates have gone up. But hopefully we'll get somewhere around the 3.5 range for these bond issues. And then the next couple slides are regarding the certificates of obligation. The first one is for the general purpose projects. And then the 2022 Bs are for the TERS-related projects. And again, the 2020 COs are structured 20-year debt, again, structured around your existing debt in an effort to minimize your tax rate impact. And that will generate $10.7 million in proceeds for the city. And then the TERS-related projects will generate $8.3 million for the TERS-related projects. And again, those are about 8-year debt expiring or being paid off in 2030, bullet maturity. That corresponds with the reimbursement from the TERS we believe will come in either 2027 or 2028, depending on the growth of the TERS. And then the next page is the sources and uses for the two certificates of obligation. Again, for the 2020A there on the left, certificates of obligation, $9.8 million in principal amount, premium of about $1 million, less cost of issuance to generate the proceeds of $10.7 million. And then again, the all-cost interest rates, 3.285. Again, we think that'd be closer to 3.5 in this market. And then on the TERS, $7.8 million in principal amount, premium of about $670,000, less cost of issuance, generates proceeds of $8,380,000 for the projects. And again, the cost of issuance, because this is smaller and because it's truncated, the all cost is a little higher because cost of issuance is about 3.892, and we think that's right on market right now. And then the final couple pages are the certificates of obligations 2022C, excuse me. These are the water and sewer projects. So this is a change from what we normally have done. Traditionally, we've issued water and sewer bonds for water and sewer projects and had to basically put money aside for a reserve fund, which has tied up some capital for your system. By issuing certificates of obligation, we're able to do away with the reserve fund for this bond issue and save about $3.2 million for the city by not having to fund that reserve. And also, the coverage requirements are not part of this equation here by issuing COs. And so we issued 20-year debt for COs for the water and sewer projects, level principal like we've done in the past for the water and sewer issues, and we'll generate $49.2 million for the projects. And then for sources and uses, $44.7 million in principal, $4.8 million in premium, less cost of issuance gets the $49.2 million in proceeds. And again, we have 3.144 all costs. We think that'd be closer to about 3.4, 3.35 right now. And then to accomplish all this, we have a schedule of events. Tonight, we're asking you for the first reading of the permanent improvement bonds and also authorize the notice of intent to issue the COs, all 3 CO issues. We'll publish that notice on Wednesday, the 20th. Come back on the 25th and have a second reading on the permanent improvement bonds. And then publish a second notice on April 27th, have the rating calls on May 16th, sell the bonds the morning of Monday, June 13th, and then bring those results to you that evening, and then close on Thursday, July 7th. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions about the financing structure. Mr. Woody, I'm sure will be happy to answer questions on the legal documents we're asking you to approve tonight.
All right, thank you for that. Staff, any other comments? All right, we'll open it up to questions, comments, concerns from council. Anybody got anything? Member Carbone?
Yep, thank you, Mayor. The next, I guess, so the uniform general election dates are in May. So for any municipalities in the state of Texas that have bond referendums, we're going to beat those to the market.
Right now, there's 113 school district bond elections. I think there's only about 12 city elections, and then I think 1 or 2 counties and several are MUDs, but MUDs, they can't issue until they've got their value. So that's off the table. School districts, once they're approved in May, have to go through the process of applying for permanent school fund guarantee. So they have to wait almost till the end of the following month, so end of June, to sell bonds. So we'll get ahead of that by selling these.
Okay. All right. And what, earlier when you said it spiked up to what, 3.48 on the 20-year. If you see that happening again, on June 13th, do you have the flexibility? I mean, who has the judgment to say, hey, we don't like market conditions as of today, let's defer?
We will have those conversations leading up to that sale date and on the sale date with Amy and her staff, and we can make that decision. We can pull the deal halfway through pricing, even after pricing, before we make a commitment to the underwriters. It's not ideal to have investors on the hook for buying our bonds and saying we're pulling away, but we can do that. It's happened.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Good deal. Member Camcar?
Josh, can we pull up the agenda item right up on the packet? It's page 512. But by the way, I'm on the filibuster. John, it's great to see you. I know you're a busy man right now selling all those bonds. So I imagine you're running all over the region right now. So. That page and right after it, yes, sir. It's a page that has all the projects on it. Page 512. Yeah. And you're on it. One page right before it. So I just want to talk, this is my favorite discussion, is drainage, and a lot of these projects are drainage on here. Some of these, Willow Crest Subdivision, Wesley, Animal Service Shelter, Pearland Parkway, general obligation bonds that were voted. Can we scroll down to the next page? And we discussed this, I guess, the end of last year on the financing piece on these. All of these items are relatively long life items, and there was an opportunity to do either 20 or 30-year debt. I want to read the last line under current and future CIP just for the record. All projects have an expected lifespan that exceeds the duration of the debt. There was an opportunity here to do 30-year debt as opposed to 20-year debt. Obviously, that's the difference in how much interest you want to pay and how much principal. If we did the longer term debt, John, we would in theory have a lower principal payment.
We have a lower principal payment and probably a slightly lower overall annual payment for these bonds, but overall you're paying more interest because interest rates are higher.
I don't want to go belabor the point. I really feel for some of these improvements that we know are these very long lead items, that 30-year may have been more appropriate just because it would help us manage our tax rate. That is a philosophical discussion amongst the staff. I just want to bring it up. We talked about this. We have the ability to do this under our financial policies. I'm not going to go and belabor it, but that's where I would have liked to have gone. So.
Fair comment. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, move in that direction. Madam Secretary, we'll call for a vote.
Member Owens?
Aye.
Member Orlando?
Aye.
Member Carbone?
Aye.
Member Camcar?
Aye.
Member Hernandez?
Aye.
Member Little? Member Perez?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right, moving to new business item number 7. Mr. Orlando, place that on the table. I'd appreciate it.
Consideration and possible action, resolution number R 2022-82. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Into staff report.
I don't think we have anything more for this next one, sir.
You know what? This is just for the TERS bonds, correct?
TERS?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
So questions, comments from council as part of the previous presentation? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, we'll call for the vote.
Member Orlando?
Aye.
Member Carbone?
Aye.
Member Camcar?
Aye.
Member Hernandez?
Aye.
Member Little?
Aye.
Member Perez?
Aye.
Member Owens?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right, moving to new business
Gotta leave
item
an
number
impact.
8. Member Carbone, would you place it on the table, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Consideration and possible action, Resolution R 2022-80. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Same thing. This was part of our, it is part of our previous presentation. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, we'll call for the vote.
Member Carbone?
Aye.
Member Kemcar?
Aye.
Member Hernandez?
Aye.
Member Little? Member Perez?
Aye.
Member Owens?
Aye.
Member Orlando?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
With gusto. Item number 9, Mayor Pro Tem, would you place it on the table, please?
Yes, sir. Resolution number R2022-81. So moved. Oh,
Second.
consideration possible action. There we go. Second.
Did we get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Same thing as before. This was in the previous presentation. Any other questions, comments, concerns from council? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, we'll call for the vote.
Member Hernandez?
Aye.
Member Little? Member Perez?
Aye.
Member Owens?
Aye.
Member Orlando?
Aye.
Member Carbone?
Aye.
Member Kemcar?
Nay.
Nay. Motion carries 6-1.
All right, moving to new business item number 10. Member Camcar, would you place it on the table, please? Okay, real quick. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Before we get to that, I am going to recuse myself, being with Keep Pearland Beautiful. So I'm going to step out of the room. Thank you, Mayor.
Got it. And I have one speaker request. I'll make sure we take care of that. Member Camcar?
Yes, sir. Consideration possible action R2022-84. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We're into staff report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is the result of ongoing discussions we've had in managing the New Frontier Waste franchise agreement. Council will recall we did go through with council when we were putting this out that there was a desire by council and others to make the payments and the accounting for the household hazardous waste as transparent and clear as possible. So in the RFPs, we consciously put that out separately and called for respondents to identify those costs. That was done when we awarded that with Frontier. So we are now through the first quarter of that contract, now working with KPB and ongoing discussions, come to the point where we believe that there is a rationale for the city putting some of our franchise monies back into the system, if you will, for covering the costs of certain household hazardous waste collections that are handled at the KPB facility. Another part of this is we moved away from the curbside that was used just a small amount, and so we are focusing at this collection center at the house at the center. And so the proposal tonight would move us towards modifying the agreement so that the city would be in a position to be the same as some of the other cities in providing a contribution towards that. But Trent's been working with KPB and others. Lori Rodriguez is here, and they can correct anything that I said or amplify anything that they want. So, good.
All right, thank you for that. We'll move to council for questions, comments, concerns. Oh, one public speaker, you're right. I'm sitting here looking at it and I didn't call her. Ms. Laney Cade, please give your name and address for the record and 3 minutes to speak. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Can y'all hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. My name is Laney Cade. I live at 1901 Meadow Creek Drive in Pearland, Texas, 77581. Thank you, Mayor Cole, members of City Council. I just want to say a little bit tonight about this item. For the past 40 years, the City of Pearland has shown its commitment to Keep Pearland Beautiful's mission of empowering Pearland citizens to take responsibility for their environment. In 2004, the city took this commitment to another level with the opening of the Stella Roberts Recycling Center, where residents could bring recyclable materials and household hazardous waste. In 2016, when KPB assumed operation of the recycling center, The city maintained its household hazardous waste funding program to ensure that hazardous materials were responsibly processed with as few barriers as possible. This program allowed Pearland residents to bring more than 120 tons of waste per year and keep the toxic and harmful substances out of our local landfills, waterways, ditches, and off the roads. I encourage you and ask you to please vote to restore this funding to pay the city's waste hauler for household hazardous waste generated by Pearland residents. We have been a city committed to our community's environmental health for multiple decades. Please don't send the wrong message by letting this program cease. Please vote yes to restore the funding on Resolution R 2022-8 and show the citizens of Pearland that you care about the future of our beautiful city. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for that. Now we'll move to questions, comments, concerns from council. Member Owens.
Yeah, this one, the franchise tax, what have we been using that for? I know it's, what, 1.3 million?
I don't know about the number, but that has been into the general fund, the city's fund. It's actually was lowered as part of this last franchise agreement than what the rate we were collecting in the past.
Okay, so we have the franchise of 1.3 million. We're giving 14% of that to keep Pearland beautiful now.
Does that dollar amount sound right? Just to verify.
That's 14% is what it has been.
Sounds high.
We do provide the 14% to KPB. I'd have to do some numbers to get the total franchise fee revenues.
Off the top of my head, when we were doing budget, I thought it was like in a 6, but that could be just something else. Let's check on that.
No, and as it's listed in there, that 14% of that goes to
how much do we do for the first quarter
now, which is a pretty sizable amount of money out of the 1.3 million franchise tax.
I think if we take the first quarter collections and just run that out for a year, it's closer to a $2 million number. Ballparking
So
it.
far on there was 568,000 or something so far the first few months.
528, is that what you have, Robert?
74. So there's monies that are available to, if the city chooses to put into the system for that.
And what would that be used for?
What would this 200 be for?
No, the money that we're going into Keep Pearland Beautiful, what does that pay?
So that's already obligated. That's for their operation of the system. This would be the other 200 that we're talking about would be to bridge that gap for the household hazardous waste.
Okay.
So that'd be new money, if you will, into the back into it. Is that fair?
Yes.
So actually, we'll be going beyond 14% going into there. Probably 15 or 16% of the money out of the franchise.
So I think if you take a look at it, the way it was set up previously is that the household hazardous waste, the cost of the waste hauler to pick that up at households as well as at KPB was built into the rate that everybody paid on their garbage bill that comes with their water bill. So that was built into that rate. For transparency, when we bid out the new contract, we separated that number out. And so it's no longer built into everybody's bill. So there's still a cost for that we bid, and this would reimburse. This would actually pay for Pearland residents for that to be hauled off by the current hauler. So KPB never has used that 14% of the franchise fee that they collect to handle any of the household hazardous waste on the prior contract or this one.
So we use that for Pearland residents then for the household waste?
Yes, this will be for Pearland households only.
I want to make sure that I understand and that we're not conflating any of these funding sources. So it's my understanding we're not talking about right now giving more money to keep Pearland beautiful, right? We're talking about giving money to a waste hauler.
That's a much more clear way to put it. Thank you. That's correct.
And in the past, when we were with waste management, it was the case that it was on the water bill, but it was going directly from the water bill, but it was going directly from the bill to the hauler again. It wasn't like Keep Pearland. It wasn't really, says the Keep Pearland Beautiful agreement, but it wasn't going to Keep Pearland Beautiful and then they're handling it. It's going from the bill to the hauler.
Exactly how the bill got paid, in essence, that's the way it is. I don't know the details of did we reimburse them or did they. I believe from what our citizens paid us on the bills, that was then that portion for household hazardous waste was then paid to the hauler.
The hauler,
So
right?
you're correct,
Right.
yes.
So again, but from the city directly to the hauler.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I actually am the one, or maybe multiple people brought this up to be looked at because I've gotten a ton of calls about this, and so like I appreciate the breaking it out as part of the RFP, but I think there might have been a little bit of a disconnect in terms of communication with the council and maybe with the public as well, because it was never my intention, and I don't think the intention of anyone up here to be in a situation where all of a sudden there's this strange thing where there are other cities who are able to bring citizens of other cities are able to bring their items into the Pearland, the Keep Pearland Beautiful branded facility. And if you're from Pearland, you have to pay. And if you're from these other cities, you don't. And so I don't think it certainly wasn't my intention. I don't think that was anyone's intention. So I think there might have been a lapse there, but I think what we're doing tonight is going to fix that. And I will be certainly supporting it.
Member Carbone?
Thank you, Mayor. So not to get in the weeds, but this is amending the lease agreement. So KPB pays whoever's disposing of it, and then we're reimbursing KPB.
I believe we've got it set up to where we will be billed directly. KPB will provide the reporting of what is dropped off by Pearland residents, and then our waste hauler, Frontier, will bill the city directly, and we'll pay that for household hazardous waste.
Okay. All right. Is there a rep here from KPB? Okay. Thank you for being here. In the write-up that talked about the appointment only, and I agree with Councilman Orlando, I got a lot of feedback as well for the Pearland citizens that wanted to drop off, but then also kind of after all the COVID restrictions, for the most part, have been relaxed. Citizens still having to make appointments to drop off recycling. Is that going to continue, or what are the plans around that?
So my name is Lenora Tollefson, and actually April 1st, we opened back up Tuesday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. The only thing that needs appointments is household hazardous waste, because it does take a process and we do have to weigh and track where that comes from. We are requiring appointments for that. So far, it's been really good as far as the amount of staff that we have and the volume that we're getting per day, that we are looking to extend it, but we did call it our Earth Month hours just to be open and try it out, especially since we're utilizing appointments for some items, but not everything.
What were those hours again?
Tuesday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Okay, thank you. I guess the question I'd have back for staff, is there anything in our lease or our agreement with KPB as to what hours they need to operate? We've got a nice facility out there, and I'd like to see it open as long as possible so folks can drop off, because a lot of folks work 9 to 1.
There's not anything in the current agreement.
Okay. I don't want to slow down what's happening tonight, but I'd definitely like to look at revisiting that. That's all I have.
Yeah. Good comments. Any other questions, comments? Member Camcar?
Yeah. Mr. Lee, can we just pull up 688? I just give Josh a chance to get caught up. So I went out there the other day. We just replaced our big TV. It's not a big TV. It was like the first TV I got when I was an adult after college. And Mama had it in the garage. She said, Alex, it's got to get out of the garage. And so finally got out of the garage after 2 weeks of being inoperable. And then went and dropped it off at KPB. And it took me all of about 5 minutes. So I thought that was really handy. And I didn't have to pay anything. And so I just wanted to pull up what are the other services If we just want to blow that up, kind of what people can go and do, hazardous waste disposal, automotive fluids. I don't do automotive work, but I guess that would be nice to be able to dispose of it quickly if you do it at home. TVs here, like which I've said you don't have to pay, and then paper shredding, which I didn't know, but somebody in front of me was doing the paper shredding. So if you got a lot of files that are important and you don't want them just going in the trash, going and taking that there, they'll shred them for you. So I just want to highlight that. It was relatively quick and efficient for me, and then I'll be supportive of this measure. So that's all I had, Mayor.
Good deal.
If I can mention, the appointment for household hazardous waste is longer time, so it's from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. You just have to make an appointment.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, I certainly am in favor of closing this gap. I think that was part of the unintended consequences, if you will, of the contract negotiations and how it all came about, and then certainly putting it into practice after the fact. We've learned that since October 1. And in fact, I think, Member Hernandez, I remember having some conversations with him before taking on this position, that he was seeing some discrepancies in how this was going to be handled and those types of things ahead of time. So glad to see that we're moving this forward. Member Owens?
Yeah, just quickly on this one, can we track that for a few months to see how everything's going?
Well, I think that's part of the reporting. I think we will get a tracking, if I understood KPB's role here.
That's correct. We'll get a reporting of who's dropping off household hazardous waste and where they originate from.
Will we get? So will that be a Thursday packet, quarterly type thing, or what are you anticipating there?
So we get, I believe, monthly reports from Frontier generally, and we've been providing approximately quarterly updates on the contract startup, so we could just fold that into that.
So that'll be a part of their quarterly. Okay. Good deal. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, we'll call for the vote.
Member Kamkar?
Aye.
Member Little? Member Perez?
Aye.
Member Owens?
Aye.
Member Orlando?
Aye.
Member Carbone?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
All right. You going to grab Mr. Hernandez? All right. We will move to new business item number 11. Let's see, he just stepped out. Mr. Perez, would you place that on the table, please?
Gladly, Mayor. Consideration and possible action. Ordinance number R2022-85. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Staff report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is a resolution to authorize the specifics for a new program that Council made a budget allocation for a couple months ago, and $250,000, right? $250,000, and that's for assistance program to allow for. And we looked at choices, but our suggestion is that we make it limited towards installation of automatic license plate readers by neighborhoods over and above what we're doing as the city ourselves. And given that kind of money, and Ron, what was the numbers you were saying that this would 250 would provide?
So over a 2-year period, it would only provide 50 cameras throughout the city.
Right. So it's pretty focused, and it's just a way, another option to maybe for some neighborhoods bridge that gap if they're looking at ways to do that. And so the program is outlined in the memo. Wanted to get some eyes on that and some buy-in, and before we actually offer this up and get going on it. Nothing to add.
All right, we'll open up to council. Questions, comments, concerns? I've got, Member Kamkar? Oh, you got one, Member?
No, I'd like to thank staff for putting this together. I like the idea of keeping it focused to just the ALPRs. I think that provides the data that helps PD in real time. Let's roll it out, stay focused. If it's successful and we see a need out there for potentially other grant type items, I guess I'd be willing to discuss that in the future. But I think this was brought up with the cameras. I think we keep it focused to that and do what we can to keep that fast pace to roll out.
Member Hernandez.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a question, I guess, from an administrative perspective. Do you, Ron, maybe your chief, do y'all see any value in maybe involving the PCP, AAA, and maybe providing some support to review these applications and make recommendations, since, I mean, they're basically a community group already to support you, or is that maybe just too far out in left field?
I don't mind any citizen oversight. If we wanted to create a board to, you know, take a look at what we're doing every day, that's fine. I don't know if I want to involve the CPAA. They're kind of our partners in a lot of things. I'd hate to get them in a spot where maybe they live in some of these neighborhoods. Grants get approved, they don't get approved. I don't really think that's their function, but definitely interested in citizen oversight.
Okay. Yeah, that was really my only concern, Mayor, was trying to provide maybe some input to help with the administrative aspect, maybe make a recommendation, and it'd be from community members. But I'll defer to the chief on this. And thank you. That's all I have.
Mayor, just a quick question. Chief Spires, just for kind of a future visioning, do we expect or do we look at expanding this program if we find success? Is this would you like this to be the first step of a network across the city, or do you think this would provide sufficient coverage for the foreseeable future?
Well, I think it's a good pilot program. It's definitely a great start with the 31 cameras you've already approved. You know, this is a system that's already all around the Houston area. We already tap into some of their data, you know, as we did the other day when we helped them solve some crimes. So it's a good pilot program for us, and I do see it being successful and expanding on it later.
Okay, so would we, maybe to clear a little bit of, for lack of a better term, heartburn about how this initially got funded, would we be looking at maybe a yearly allocation to purchase more of these, to expand this each year, or would we just do like every periodically say, hey, this is working, let's go ahead and fund 10 more cameras, 50 more cameras? How would that look?
I'd probably want to wait and see how this goes and kind of analyze the data before we got that far ahead of ourselves. But
okay, thank you.
Member Camcar?
I think it was Chief Savage, maybe it was Chief Spires, but last time we brought this up, I just want to reiterate the way this grant was focused, and right now the recommendation from the chief at the last meeting, so the last meeting or the two before that, was around this, and there was a thought of a credible deterrent, but this is not for traffic enforcement, this is not for assessing fines, this is not a revenue or fee generation, this is strictly so the police can have more data going in. I just want to get that out there again.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. I just want to be very clear on that. I agree with Member Carbone that there's an initial recommendation around the ALPR cameras and the chiefs there. We're going to call it public safety. I would like to maybe dedicate a percentage that is maybe not necessarily in this other space, just because every neighborhood has different needs and wants. I know Lakes of Highland Glen responded that they would like this 4 cameras. A couple of other neighborhoods on the further end of town that are kind of on the edge of the service area have voiced that. But I think for other communities, it might just be more lighting or the ability to do an after-school program, as is mentioned in this write-up. And I just want to be able to have some flexibility. I don't want to create an undue burden on the staff, but one size fits all doesn't necessarily fit everybody. And so I'd like to at least offer a friendly amendment that we dedicate a percentage towards the use that the police have outlined. And if there's no other interest at the end of the year, when we come back and look at this again, we can go move those other dollars. But I'd like to at least have the opportunity that every community can say, this is what we may need, and do that. And I'm open to 20 or 30%, maybe not, a majority of it going to this item, but having a little flexibility in that appropriation to do other things. Because this is going to be an evolving item. I just don't want to do the one item when we've got maybe other areas that I know Shadow Creek Ranch, for instance, has a lot of cameras already. They may have another need if their HOA deems it, or other parts of the city. That would be my comment. I don't know if I can find a second on that.
You want to make a defined, 20 or 30, do you want to make it defined?
20 or 30% of the appropriated dollars, maybe 20%. So that'd be 40,000 or 50, sorry.
50.
Yeah, 50 can go to something else other than the cameras, and then we evaluate it maybe a year from now. And if we need to put more the other way, that's fine too.
We have an amending motion to amend.
Maybe can I clarify? Does that mean 50,000 that can go towards other things, but could also?
Correct.
Okay.
It's not just.
It's not just
it could go.
this one item.
Okay, I can get there with a second.
We have a motion and a second to allow up to 20% or $50,000 to be used on other public safety measures
other than the ALPR.
than the ALPR. Is that correctly stated?
Yes, sir, Mayor.
Yes, sir. Questions, comments on the motion to amend?
I think I appreciate what we're trying to do. I'd rather focus on this and this alone. And if we find other needs, certainly in the budget, in the normal budget process, look at what else can be done, rather than having a set aside, having people trying to manage this set aside where it gets essentially escrowed somewhere else and may even be forgotten about, like so many other escrows that we have floating around. So I appreciate the thought, not to dissuade the initiative, but I don't think I can get there. I'd rather just focus all of the money on what PD has asked to use it for.
Any other questions, comments on the amending motion?
No, I agree. I think we need to stay focused on the ALPR. I would say, Chief hears all this. So if you come back next year, next month, next week and say, wow, there's this new widget that we need some help with to roll out in neighborhoods, we're all ears. But I think right now, let's stay focused because, quite honestly, it's pretty impressive you pulled this together so quick. Essentially put together a grant program. So I think, putting additional set-asides, it's going to be more administratively burdensome. And I don't know, even if it was my community or my HOA, that I can justify a public safety grant fund putting lights in a park. Not saying it's not necessary, but I don't know that I could get behind that. But I can get behind the ALPRs and the way they network and provide real-time data across the whole city.
Questions, comments?
I'm happy to withdraw in trying to have unity amongst the group. No point in having a 4-3 vote on something that is community. If you guys want to do that, I would like us to evaluate, where we are a year from now, and then go and say, did we use all the money? Did we not? I want to be efficient more than anything else, Mayor.
Sure, absolutely.
So I'll withdraw the amendment. If you're good with that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we're withdrawing the amending motion, or motion to amend, excuse me. Okay, so any other questions, comments on the base motion?
Maybe just a question. Will the parameters of this, I guess, get built out a little bit more before it actually goes live, such as, okay, shaking your head, I'll take that. All right. I trust you. Thank you.
And I think we've touched on this a little bit before, but just the nature of this, I just wanted to know if we could speak to any privacy concerns that people have and allaying those. That member Camcar mentioned, this isn't going to be used as traffic enforcement, but are there any other controls or guidelines or anything that people should be aware of, limitations on how this is being used that might give people some comfort?
Yeah, so we're not capturing people's information. We're specific to vehicles, so it's doing make, model, color, license plate primarily. Anything specifically identifying the vehicle, such as a roof rack or a sticker on the back, that sort of thing. So we're not actually capturing biometric data from people. It's vehicle based. As far as the information, it's stored for 30 days unless it's manually retained. So if one of our detectives finds a suspect vehicle and manually retains that data because it's pertinent to an investigation, then it becomes part of that report, which is, of course, a judicial record, and there's a report of that. We do have an internal policy covering the use, who has access to it, as well as logging what the particular search was for. So it's going to be for a specific investigation or a specific case number. So we're logging down both the users and the reasons it's being used.
Gotcha. That's great. So just to use an example, so if somebody was concerned that someone at PD who maybe their neighbor they had a disagreement with or something, that they would be able to go in and look up where their car was or something, there's going to be pretty strict controls around that. And that's, of course, going to be in violation of the policy. And there would be, I imagine, pretty severe consequences for someone who is abusing the technology in any way.
Yes, that's correct. And the other thing I want to point out is that it's not a live feed. It's a series of snapshots. So we can go on and I can see what just happened in a neighborhood as far as the vehicle that just passed by, but it's not a live feed. Otherwise, it wouldn't be feasible for a solar-powered unit to be recording all the time because it would run out of battery. So it's based on, when the vehicles pass.
Got it. No, thank you so much.
The only question I've got beyond that, Chiefs, the previous action from council, when do we expect delivery of cameras and installation and all of that?
So we're in the process now. We have Public Works people and Flock people have started to get together and reviewing the locations. Our analyst has coordinated with Flock to find a few locations that need to be amended to be more in line with our right-of-way ordinances. So they're communicating. When they actually come out to do the site surveys, they'll kind of fine tune it, and then we'll start seeing installations. The company did reassure me that as soon as they have viable locations that are approved on both sides, they'll start installations. So if there is a TxDOT right of way that is going to take longer, we're not going to hold up the entire process just for that one location. As soon as feasible, we're going to start putting the units up, and then we'll do them on a timely basis.
But to date, we don't have any up.
That's correct.
I've had a few people say, I see this up in the air. That must be one of these new cameras. And no, we don't have them in yet. So not what that is. Okay, appreciate that. Last call, questions, comments? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, we call for the vote.
Member Perez?
Aye.
Member Owens?
Aye.
Member Orlando?
Aye.
Member Carbone?
Aye.
Member Hernandez?
That was out of order. Aye.
Apologize. Member Kamkar?
Aye.
Member Little? Motion carries 7-0.
Just trying to see if you were awake. All right. Moving to matters removed from consent agenda, and we did have 4. So we just left off with Member Owens. Would you place consent agenda item A as in alpha on the table, please?
Consideration possible action, approval of the minutes, so moved.
Second. Motion and second. Member Kamkar, you pulled this. You must have a question.
Yes. Can we roll up to item A, the second tab? I just want to add a clarifying note. Hope it's a friendly note. Where are you? Consent agenda. There you are. Under, yeah. Can we
Which meeting?
Sorry. CIP budget. I apologize for being indistinct there. I'd just like to add an item under the notations. Item FA 2502 was the police facility, the range, and the fire range, and the tract. There was discussion with the city manager, I think, being supportive. Mr. Ibarra, Officer Ibarra, was discussing bringing that forward, and we were discussing possibly bringing that parts of that item forward from FY 25-26, possibly portioning it 2023 or 24. I just would like to memorialize that discussion did happen and that there was interest in looking at that item and that we are, on some level, there is movement on that. And I just wanted to memorialize that for the minutes. So I don't have much more than that, so let me make the motion. I'd like to add a note that FA 2502 is being looked at and reviewed in conjunction with the police and staff to bring portions of that forward in the CIP. That's the motion.
That's right. You weren't there. That's a motion to amend the minutes, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do we have a second for that? I mean, it did take place. That was part of the discussion. I can attest to that. That is what we discussed. He's just wanting to memorialize that.
Second.
Okay. Yeah.
And I assume, Madam Secretary, there's no objection to making those type of notes into the minutes? Just as a matter. Okay.
I apologize for leaving that.
Oh, it's fine.
Well, they're fairly generalized.
We have a motion and a second to amend the minutes of the special city council meeting, CIP budget workshop minutes for March 21, 2022.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So any other questions, comments on the amended motion? Motion to amend? Hearing none, Madam Secretary will call for the vote on the amendment.
Member Kamkar?
Aye.
Member Hernandez?
As I wasn't there, I'll abstain on this.
Member Little? Aye. Member Perez?
Aye.
Member Owens?
Aye.
Member Orlando?
Aye.
Member Carbone?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, item G, we're back to Mr. Orlando. Would you place item?
Mayor, that was just the amendment.
Oh, I'm
that was
sorry.
Yeah, we
happening.
need to vote on the.
Yeah, I got ahead of myself. Sorry about that. Now
No
we
worries.
need to approve the motion as amended. Madam Secretary will call for the vote.
Member Kamkar?
Aye.
Member Little? Member Perez?
Aye.
Member Owens?
Aye.
Member Orlando?
Aye.
Member Carbone?
Aye.
Motion carries to amend.
All right, now we'll move to item G. Member Orlando, would you place that on the table, please?
Consideration and possible action resolution number R 2022-71. So moved.
Second.
Second. Motion is second. Member Kamkar, you pulled that?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, I'm getting my Woody out all in one meeting.
Oh, my God.
Sorry. So back to the quorum or whatever it is. The contract on the inspections, I just wanted to hear. I wanted to hear from the staff, what is this $55,000?
What we contract with the BBG to do is to support us in the field, so they will conduct inspections on those that we can't get to. But right now, we are down one inspector. We've been down an inspector for quite a bit this fiscal year, so that's why our numbers are up. But they have been supporting us with both inspections in the field as well as plan review as we bring up our current staff to training to take that back.
Is this all P&Z related items, or is this going to veer into?
Your mic's off.
Sorry, I apologize, John. Is this all P&Z items, or is this going to veer into the STR or other items?
This is just building permitting, building inspections.
It's just a straightforward building permit inspection. It has nothing to do with
any other
no.
item. Okay, all right. This
existing contract. It's a good thing. We have a lot of activity. We backfill. We use this contractor for ebbs and flows of workload, and they do a good job. So, as John mentioned, we just have recruiting issue and trying to find inspectors. We need more.
And just one more item, reading through this, we're only going to pay on this contract if we use them, correct? Like,
Correct. This is only a pay for actual use of services.
Right. Cool. Thank you.
Deal. All right. Any other questions, comments?
Mayor, just to state what I was going to state when this was consent agenda item, I previously abstained from most of these votes for BBG Consulting. I had a previous business relationship that has expired by several years. So anybody who pays that close attention, that's why I'm voting. I no longer have that business relationship.
All right. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, Madam Secretary will call for the vote.
Member Orlando?
Aye.
Member Carbone?
Aye.
Member Kamkar?
Aye.
Member Hernandez?
Aye.
Member Little?
Aye.
Member Perez.
Aye.
Member Owens.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right, rounding up to H. Member Carbone, would you place it on the table, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Consideration and possible action, Resolution R 2022-72. So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Staff report.
We have an existing agreement with Pearland ISD for operations of the natatorium. Nationally, there's a shortage of lifeguards. This is a win-win solution to that, whereby PISD would provide some of their staff who get trained up and do what would have had to been hired lifeguards for some pieces of the supervision of the facility. Nothing to add.
All right. Questions, comments?
Yes, Josh, page 342. This is an item with Pearland ISD, and I remember in our previous budget, Mayor, we had discussions about dollars owed under our various agreements. Here, this bottom paragraph that starts with the 20%. I just want to read this out for the record. At the time, the district's outstanding balance for repair and maintenance is $226,000. I believe that number is down from $300,000. And I guess I'm curious, where are we on the collections piece on this? And I know we're adding more into this agreement, and I just, that's not a little bit of money.
So it's been on the back burner, frankly, in terms of PISD and us. As we've done in the past, we're looking for a non-cash solution that we can present, that we can live with, chiefly in the form of some land. There's some discussions about various pieces, so that's been outstanding. Obviously, when it gets up to that second piece there with the replaster and some larger amounts, we'll be, if not before, amping it up for sure by then. So,
I just want to clarify this. A penny is roughly 800,000. That's a little under 250,000. I mean, it's probably a quarter of a penny on the tax rate. It's ongoing items. This is an item, I believe, to add staff and what is the payment for that staff and that arrangement. But just would love to collect those dollars, but I understand dollars are tight right now, especially after COVID and especially with school funding always being a difficult discussion.
Councilman, this has been going on for years with PISD.
Can I just ask a naive question? I mean, do we just not pay people sometimes, or do we just have $250,000 outstanding payables?
That we owe, or what do you
like the city of Pearland? Do we have the option to just not? I mean, I'm
sure
it seems to come up a lot.
Yeah, not typically, no.
Okay.
I think these are separate matters. The shortfall with from the school district is something we can discuss. We could probably even discuss it in a joint meeting with the trustees if we wanted to revisit what we've done, what has been done in the past. I don't want to conflate the two. I do think that obviously paying more attention to this issue as of late, they're significantly in the red. I think we've got a significant budget shortfall, so they just don't have it to give, and they don't have as much control over their budget as we do. They give it to the state. The state gives them some of it back. So it's, knowing the trustees personally, I don't think there's any intent to try and withhold the money from us, but I think that if we can continue to work with them and try and find a creative solution where we get the value back if they don't have the cash, because they do have land bank, they have other services that we share, maybe we can give it to them at a discount or something of that nature. But I think certainly let's not discuss that too much with the lifeguards so we don't confuse the two issues, but that's something certainly that needs to be addressed at some point.
Yeah, I'll take the lifeguards and some land. That would be great.
Yeah. So, and just the only reason I wanted to add that is I know that we have some more repairs coming up and other items that will add to this balance. And at some point, $225,000 of land and a whole lot, but those repairs are real, and this item will be out there. So it's just something to bring attention to.
I mean, in the write-up, it shows that PISD has also been notified that approximately $1.6 million in invoices are due. So I mean, we've given them a heads up. I do think we need to have a joint meeting between the two parties. I know I'm from the city side. I don't think we're thrilled with the amount of of money we're having to dump into the natatorium. I would venture to say that the ISD is not thrilled about the amount they're having to dump in. So, as sometimes I'll tell people, if both sides are kind of squirming, they don't like the agreement, then it's probably a pretty good agreement. One side feels like they're a winner, then it wasn't a good agreement for both parties. Right. Nonetheless, I think it would be a good opportunity to get both sides together and talk about potential solutions. Because I don't know that throwing out there that we're trying to get more land, that probably doesn't sit well with the ISD at the same time.
It was facetious, but yes.
No, but I mean, it's our EDC that sometimes acts like if it's school district land, then it's our land. Well, it's school district's land. So I think a good joint meeting would help and go a long way.
I agree. It's probably been years since the joint meeting has taken place.
6?
I don't recall. We used to have them with them, and one of our council members upset them, and they upset Missouri County at the same time. We kept, we used to meet with the county commissioners.
And that former council member used to upset every one of us. Too. So we
Surely not.
Well, we have
join the phrase.
We have a new superintendent coming in, so maybe it's a good time.
Newness. All right. So any other questions, comments? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, we'll call for the vote on item H.
Member Carbone?
Aye.
Member Camcar?
Aye.
Member Hernandez?
Aye.
Member Little? Member Perez?
Aye.
Member Owens?
Aye.
Member Orlando?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right. Mayor Pro Tem, would you please place item O on the agenda, please, or on the table, please?
Yes, sir. Consideration and possible action resolution number R2022-79. So moved.
Second.
Motion a second. Quick staff report.
Yes, Mayor, council members, this is it's called a GRIP application. This was filed by CenterPoint Gas. The GRIP stands for the Gas Reliability Infrastructure Program. Just to cut to the chase here, what this does is it allows a gas utility to apply for, and not a rate increase, because we actually have original jurisdiction on rate increases. It allows them to apply for it's a process that goes directly to the Railroad Commission and sort of bypasses us, but it allows them to recover their capital investment in between rate cases. And that's why it's called the GRIP application in dealing with their infrastructure. So it's designed to allow them to recapture that money. As you can see here, we don't have official say in this. The only thing we really have the ability to do is to delay it till the last minute. The proposed increases, it's a 6.4% for residential, commercial 7.0, and then general service large volume, that's a 15% increase. When you break it down, essentially the rate is set to go in effect May 2nd, but we have the ability to delay that to June 16th, and that's what this resolution does. It just simply delays the ultimate inevitable.
Okay.
And thank you, Mayor. Darren, the only thing I want to point out is this isn't anything that we get to decide. This is a discussion at the state level. They're just giving us a notice, essentially.
That is correct. And you'll see a similar thing, but on the electric side on a future agenda. It's called the DCRF, Distribution Cost Recovery Factor. And we'll see one for CenterPoint and Texas, New Mexico coming up on future agendas for those. Similar.
Yeah, that's the only thing I just want to point out is that there's very little we can do on this.
That is correct.
Good deal. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, call for the vote on item O.
Member Hernandez?
Since there's nothing we can do about it, aye.
Member Little? Aye. Member Perez?
Aye.
Member Owens?
Aye.
Member Orlando?
Aye.
Member Carbone?
Aye.
Member Camcar?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right, we'll move to other business. There was none. Mayor, council issues for city council discussion. There was none. We'll now recess into executive session under Texas Government Code, Section 551.074, personnel matters regarding the appointment of a fire chief, and we will adjourn at 9:24. 9:47 p.m. We will take up new business continued, consideration and possible action. We'll entertain a motion.
Yeah, Mayor, I make the motion that we hire the person we discussed in executive session for Fire Chief of City of Pearland.
Second.
Move.
We have motion and a second. Madam Secretary will call for that vote.
State the name. Member Little?
Aye.
Member Perez?
Aye.
Member Owens?
Aye.
Member Orlando?
Aye.
Member Carbone?
Aye.
Member Camcar?
Aye.
Member Hernandez?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right, with that, we will adjourn this city council meeting at 9:48.